We'd open the hearing for the planning board. It's December 9th at 6:38. 7:38, sorry. Okay, the first hearing is for 39 Miller Street, a signage special permit. Hi. Come on up, yep.
To read the public hearing?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, please.
Notice is hereby given in accordance with Mass General Law, Section 40A, and the Norfolk Bylaw, Section 59A18, that a public hearing will be held on Tuesday, December 9th, 2014, at 7:30 PM in Room 124 at the Norfolk Town Hall, 1 Liberty Lane, Norfolk, Mass, for Bina Farm Center, relative to a special permit application to allow 2 freestanding signs at the driveway entrances larger than 12 square feet at 39 Miller Street. Site is located in the residential zoning district, reference Assessor's Map 3, Block 6, Lot 10. Application materials are available for public inspection in the office of the Norfolk Planning Board during regular office hours, 9 to 6 p.m., Monday through Thursday.
And if you could identify yourself for the record.
I'm Corinne Bina, one of the founders of the Bean Farm.
Microphone, please, and
Just got over laryngitis.
turn on
Project you, it's just
till a little
for,
green light comes on.
It's for cable TV. It's
How's-
not for project.
Oh,
It's just for cable TV.
Great.
Yeah.
So Corinne Bina, one of the founders of the Bina Farm. You want me to tell you about the Bina Farm?
If you feel like it.
We offer therapeutic services for those with special needs, and we offer 100% free tuition for all veterans. We also offer a lot of scholarships for those in the Norfolk school districts. We've been at Miller Street for about 2 years. We were founded in 2009, and we always had a sign there, and we've recently changed our sign and did not know about any of this permitting situation because the landlord always allowed us to have a sign there. We are asking that you waive the $750 special size permit price. As we are a nonprofit, I don't take a salary as the executive director. Our staff doesn't take large amounts of money as well. And we also are asking that we don't have to remove the sign. A veteran did install the sign for us. We really are a nonprofit that gives back to the community. And we love being in Norfolk, but we can't afford a $750 fee. That about sums it up on my end. Do you have any questions?
Well, we have to see what the size is of the sign that you've got in existence, and,
Is your sketch here, ma'am, attached?
yeah.
Yes.
15 square feet?
Believe
Yep,
that's
3 by 5, yeah.
yep,
And there's a picture of it, right?
yep.
And do you have this?
No.
No.
So this just shows where the 2 signs are. And we always had signs there, but we replaced them. And we wanted them visible for our clientele that goes by. We really need them to be able to identify. But we also were very conscious of having the design be very similar to the landlord's signage that he has for his business that's on the property. We also made sure that the look of the signs matched the Norfolk street signs with the white.
So just one question, is this, there's 2 signs, and they're identical to one another?
Yes.
In size and
Yes.
text and everything?
Are the 2 signs, ma'am, at each entrance, one in and one out?
Yes, one on both sides.
Okay. What is the board's policy on waiving fees?
What's that?
What is the board's policy or history on waiving fees?
Well, we can waive fees, but we do have to have some funds that pays for advertising and everything else, so,
I should
Looks like she
clarify,
did pay
sorry to interrupt. We sent a letter to you saying that we would happily pay those marketing when you have to.
The advertising
Yeah, the
fees.
advertising fees, yes.
Advertising costs $150. Wonderful, 2-page spread.
And we paid that.
Yeah, those are better signs, I guess, yeah.
that- Now, you said the landlord gave you permission to put the signs up?
Yes. We've been there for 2 years, and he gave us permission to put our first signs up, and then he gave us permission to put our next sign up.
So he wasn't aware of any sign bylaws of this town?
I can't speak for him, but I will say that there was another tenant that was taking over the other side of the barn, and their sign was double the size of our sign, and it was out there for probably about a year. That tenant left, and then we took over the entire facility, and then we changed our signs. But all along, there was another sign there. I mean, it was twice the size of our sign.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people in town that aren't aware of the sign bylaw personally.
Yeah.
And myself, I would have no objection. I read the article on your business in the Globe a month or so ago. Very nice article.
Thank
Good-
you.
Good work. I have no problem waiving all the fees except the minimum required for, is it advertising?
Well, I have no problem with waiving the fees. Does anyone have an issue with waiving the fees, with the exception of what it actually costs the town? Yeah. All right.
Any motion for that, Steve?
Yeah, go ahead and make a motion.
A
for
motion to waive all signs for this
All-
public
all
hearing?
fees. All fees.
All fees for this public hearing, yes, except for the advertising cost reimbursable to the town.
Second?
that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. If we do ever change the signs, we'll come to you beforehand.
Now, I'll start over in your end. Andrea, do you have any questions?
No.
Jeff?
You know, I would say, you know, just based on the facts in front of us, I don't, have an issue with the sign per se, but if there are abutters and there are concerns, then certainly I would reserve my comments.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, if Tom, maybe you can help us. If they were to have recognized the bylaw, come in front of us and said, we want to put up 2 signs, what would the bylaw say about the size of the signs?
I think it's more than 12 square feet, a special permit.
12?
Well, and there would only be one sign allowed also.
One sign.
One sign allowed, and it would be 12 square feet, is that what you're saying?
I think it's-
Right,
I think
right.
it's-
Double check that.
Just want to know what we're approving relative to what the bylaw states, so that we can
I respect that.
understand. And you think it's easy to find, but there are 90 pages of these, so you
Yes.
have to
Yeah.
give the
And-
fella.
And while he's looking to save time, if the bylaws said that we wouldn't have been able to, we would have asked for special permission to put up 2 signs so that our special population coming from both sides could easily identify.
One sign, 12 square feet.
One sign, 12 square feet. Good memory, John. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Frank.
You have 2 driveways,
Yes.
and you don't have a one-way circulation?
No, not technically. There's actually, on the property, there's actually 3 ways to get in and out of the property. One that the landlord uses, and then 2 that we use. But because there are kids with special needs and adults walking the property, we we actually have everybody go in one way and not go in the other way, because there's horses and kids, so we monitor that.
And that's what it shows on that plan. Steve, you have a sketch.
Right.
This one here, yeah. Now,
And when we have an event that has more people, we hire a Norfolk police officer to come and man the traffic. Yeah.
the problem with this is the precedent that gets set. So, Ray, is there any special reason that we could allow this, which would not set precedent?
I don't, there's nothing in here in the bylaws that say that you can allow this. So it would be a waiver of the zoning bylaws.
Nothing with disabilities?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
What if you had one sign placed in the center of the property setback so you could see it from both directions?
The way the property is, you wouldn't be able to. You have, our clients come literally from both, and so it had to be on an angle. If it was in the center of the property, it would just be able to face.
Miller Street.
Setback?
That's where I was going, John, is that if one driveway was the primary driveway and the sign was placed back to back so you could see it from both directions, it might not be as much of a,
Does that count as
Insult.
one sign if it's just,
I mean,
Well,
you're looking for ways to
Yeah.
minimize at this point, so.
I think you're allowed a two-sided sign.
You
If you have
might
a single
be able
sign, you
to.
can have a two-sided sign.
Yeah, two-sided is okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so there,
there you go.
Steve, can
so
you
you
do
cut,
one
so
like
you cut
this?
the,
Where
You wouldn't have
Size down.
space.
That's- I don't
With the
know.
way the road is, you wouldn't have space to have a sign going this way on both sides. It wouldn't be set far enough away from the street because of the way the sides are on the property. This is set back enough so it can angle the other way. It would be too close to the street.
Trees down.
Yeah, if
Okay.
we're done with questions from the board, I'm going to open it up to the
One
public and see if
freestanding sign on the
anybody
ground.
has any other comments or questions. Does
It's too
does anyone
intensive
from the
road.
public have any comments or questions? And if you do, would you please identify yourself for the record? Yes.
I'm a butter. My name is Steve Ybarra.
Uh,
You just,
Microphone?
46 Miller Street.
Hi.
And, hi. And I have no problem with the size of the...
The microphone, you need a microphone.
I have no problem with the sign of the size, the size of the sign. We originally thought it was going to be a bigger sign, and that's why we came, because we didn't want a bigger sign. But the size of the sign that's there is right now seems to be fine, so I have no problem with that.
Two signs.
Two signs, yeah. And the only thing, you're talking about the angle of the sign, if maybe it was placed in the middle of the property, then it would be a both-way sign, so, just a thought.
Thank you.
Is there by any chance a second building on the site?
I'm sorry?
A second building on the site?
There are a few buildings on the site.
Well, it says here, one sign per building.
There's 3 buildings.
Are they yours? You rent all the three?
oh my
We
lord.
rent 2 of them, and then the landlord has, oh, that's really neat.
Good for
Okay.
you.
The landlord has one of the buildings, and we have 2 of the buildings. We actually have some space in the 3rd building. So
Look, the street's
technically,
gonna see the
we
sign.
are in all 3 buildings, but 2 of the buildings are solely just ours, and then all the land
Right before they
basically
put it
is.
No,
Ours
there's
as well.
another entrance on the other side of that barn.
It says one freestanding sign on the ground for each separate building housing one or more establishments.
So the buildings are separate?
Yes.
Sounds like they're complying.
Yes. Does sound like a way out.
The only thing in defense of only one sign is, you're not going to miss this farm with the paddocks extensive for 25 acres on both sides. So when you're coming down either way, you know there's a farm there.
And, well, your
don't
landlord
see
better
the-
realize that there's not going to be any more signs out there. If he
Right.
wants signs, he's not going to have them.
Right, right.
sounds like you already have.
And you actually, just so you know, you don't see the paddocks from the street because you actually have to drive down. There's quite a bit of a slope,
Yeah.
and they're set behind. So the barn actually blocks the view of the paddocks.
I actually got a call from your landlord before this hearing a week or so ago, and he wasn't in favor of the both signs because of the congestion in the area. And his sign's on the other side of the building.
Oh, the landlord does have signs out there?
Yes.
He has one
Dougie's
sign.
Daycare, he's got a sign on the other driveway side. Yeah.
Yes, he opened up a business after we were there. So we were the original tenant, and then he opened up his own business
He's over here.
2 years after, or no, about a year and a half after.
He's farther down, going toward Franklin?
Yeah, he's on the other side of the barn.
That little yellow?
Mm-hmm. And his sign is down further, so our signs aren't in the same spot.
And that's where his driveway is?
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
Still be all right
Okay.
instead of 3
Right.
buildings.
I thought it was.
there it is.
and that's his sign. So there's only one sign at each driveway. So I'm not sure what congestion he's talking about.
There are 3 buildings, though.
All right, so there's, doesn't seem to be any other comments from the public, so I'm just going to make a motion to close this hearing.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. Okay,
Thank you very much.
okay.
Do you need a packet or anything, or?
No, we're all
Oh,
set.
I'm interested in that. Do you mind? Thanks.
And send the vets, we have stock, and they all get free service.
Okay, Lake Street Scenic Road Tree hearing.
We just closed the hearing, we didn't vote on
No
the-
decision.
No, what's that?
You didn't make a decision, you just
No, we
closed
didn't
the
make a
hearing.
decision.
Okay.
We'll do that when we,
Yeah.
when we have our decision to view. Okay. So, there you are. All right, so, you've notice of a hearing?
Notice is hereby given that the planning board and tree warden will hold a consolidated public hearing under the provisions of Mass General Laws 40, Section 15C, Scenic Roads Act, and Chapter 87, Section 3, in Room 124 at Norfolk Town Hall on Tuesday, December 9, 2014, at 7:45 PM, to consider the application of the Town of Norfolk Department of Public Works for the removal within the street right-of-way for improvements and paving on Lake Street, from Main Street to Medway Street. Information pertaining to the trees and their location. Subject of this application is available for public inspection at the Planning Board office in Town Hall during the hours of 9 to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday.
Okay. You want to identify yourself?
Good evening, Bob McGee, Director of Public Works. As Mr. Weddleton had read from the notice that we have proposed to make improvements to Lake Street by way of grading and paving and some drainage improvements. And in that process, I think the first step was to, as I did with an arborist, drive the streets and identify the trees that we felt that needed to be removed, whether it be close to the pavement, in the shoulder, or some way impede the drainage. So I think we came up with a list, and I can't give you a number, all the trees are posted, but if you counted them up, there's a significant amount of trees. And even beyond that, there's brush and smaller trees that probably wouldn't qualify as trees. But our intention is to go down there and work within the, I believe it's a 30-foot right-of-way, staying as close to the road, making no significant width changes, although we are looking at making some grade height changes here and there. But for the most part, this is a tree hearing, and, you know, the engineering part of the job, I won't get too deep into unless I could, you know, answer any questions, but
Well, how much of the tree removal has to do with the engineering?
what you would expect on a street with trees in the way.
I mean, for grading and things like that, are some of these necessary for grading, or is this just
Yes.
because they're too close to the road?
Well, some of the trees are, we identified as dying, some of the trees are healthy and in the way, some of the trees are growing out of an embankment, which wouldn't allow us to grade for proper drainage. But, you know, as far as engineering, you know, that would be the reason for it.
Bob, is this list that you have made here, are you going to affect all these trees?
All those trees are
All those
proposed to
trees.
be removed.
So this is not a matter of trimming some, they're all going to be taken?
Exactly, that are identified. You know, but the purpose of the hearing is, you know, if there's any trees that somebody might feel that you'd want to salvage and it wasn't in the way of what we propose, you know, I believe that's the purpose of this meeting as well, so.
So did the arborist look at it in that light then of, we really only want to remove trees that we have to remove in order to execute the plan?
No, Michelle, what happened was, we drove down the street, we started at one end and we drove down. The need for the trees that need to be removed are probably discretionable, and what I came up with, the arborist was there to identify the tree for me,
I
so
see.
that we could put the
Species and,
identification down right,
I see.
and the size. And, that's close and probably not perfect when it comes to, maybe we identified a sycamore instead of an American bass, but pretty close to give you, an idea. And trees were properly posted with, and advertised as it's supposed to be.
Bob, could you give me a sense of what portion of the trees you feel need to be removed because they're in the way, or they're affecting the grading, or they're affecting drainage, versus site distance issues, where there could be issues in terms of the alignment of the roadway with corners and creating safety hazards,
Jeff,
anything like that?
There really isn't any site distant issues. Trees that we have identified, like I said in the beginning, they're close to the pavement, they're growing out of the embankment, the trees are to be cut, stumped, and then regraded. And again, what I mentioned about the engineering is, how we build the road, and the need to have that tree removed because, we have a situation where some of the road is cut through almost like a cliff effect, where water can't get off. And in those areas, what we're proposing to do is, grade back to a point where we can get at least a 3-to-1 slope, so it's, for erosion control and so forth. And in the areas where where water would sheet off the road, it would come onto a shoulder where we would naturally take out the sedimentation before it goes into the water in the wetlands. So the trees that we've identified, unless somebody could, and it costs money to take down trees, and I don't want to take down trees if we don't have to. We just felt that it was in the way of our design for the street.
Are all these the existing grades, Bob, on the road?
Excuse me?
Are all these, on the plan here I'm looking at, are all the existing grades on the
Those
road now?
are existing grades, right.
And I'm assuming since you need to take down some for grading, that you have a proposed finished grade?
I don't, John. We didn't, I'm working with some consultants when it comes to the, identifying the trees. When from here we go into notice of intent, because we're going to be working and grading through the wetlands. But as far as the design of the road, I didn't do any cross-section work or anything like that. I felt like I didn't have to.
But you had a general idea that these trees that have to be taken down for grading are going to interfere with the filling or cutting you're going to be doing for the existing road?
True.
Just not on paper.
Right. The street there, the street has got a history. You can look through it. You can see trees that are out of the pavement area that really tell us what the grade once was, because you can just look at the root system. In areas where the road has come down, it's been a result of erosion, plowing and scraping, and, we refill the road. So at some point, when I'm talking about grading, I can just show you, I'm not talking about moving, 6 feet of earth down or up, but, measuring it this way, I'm within 18 inches, the street is right now, that I, it could be 20 inches. But, if we were to put money into engineering and doing something that pretty confident that I can do and produce a nice job, then it would just take away from the job.
And do you know if any of these trees are in a resource area?
I do believe that they are, and I didn't know if tonight that that would be something that would have to be presented again at our meeting with Conservation when we presented the notice of intent.
That'll be mentioned at your filing, yes.
Exactly.
Well, every time we have something like this, I would recommend that we have a site visit. Does anyone else have any objection to having a site visit to look at these trees?
I've already seen it.
This coming weekend? Is it possible for people this coming weekend?
think so.
I can do this weekend.
Can you guys do this weekend?
Depends on the time.
Saturday? 9 o'clock? How's that sound? All right.
We could do 8:30.
Oh, wait a minute, no. I have something scheduled until later than that. I always forget about my Saturdays. Maybe about, I would have to push it towards noon, actually. Would that be a problem to anybody?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay. Yep.
Can't
right.
make it.
You can't make it?
No.
Could you make later than day?
No, I can only make first thing in the morning after 9:30.
Unless you wanted to do it
Out of town for the
Sunday.
rest of the day. Sunday I could do.
Do you have an issue with Sunday? No problem with Sunday? You guys have a problem with Sunday?
Morning?
Yeah. Yeah, we can do that one
Let
at
me see here.
8:30 and 9 o'clock. What's everyone's preference?
14, yeah.
9 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yeah, all
Okay,
right.
9 o'clock?
Okay. We're going to have a site visit at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning to look at these. Now, I'm going to open it up to the public and see if anybody has any comments about these. So if you want to have a comment, make sure that you identify yourself for the record. Anybody? Yes, go ahead.
My name's Ed McCormick. I own the property at 51 Lake Street and 51.5 Lake Street. I have a letter outlining my objections to the application for the board. I have an original, and I hope I have enough copies for everybody.
All right, thanks. I'm going to pass that down to Betsy.
Pass that to Betsy, give that one to Betsy.
Let's see.
You can share.
5, yeah.
What's the scale of these?
We'll share and pass that over to those guys.
I don't know about that. Right up here.
Okay.
This one scale is behind you here. This is the original. That's a PDF of the original.
I don't know if you want me to address them, Mr. Chairman, or you want to read them, whatever your
No,
preference is.
you can address them as you wish.
First of all, Mr. McGee has been very forthright. We've met with Mr. McGee and trying to minimize to what is going to happen to Lake Street. But what he didn't tell you is that he's taken down some trees. He's taken down over 70 trees. Those are only, that number is only that fit the diameter requirements of Chapter 87. As Mr. McGee has said, it does not include the smaller, skinnier trees or brush trees. A lot of these are in the wetlands, a lot of them are in stone walls, a lot of them are bordering along the right-of-way. I've set forth my objections. First of all, I was talking about the right-of-way. I don't know that the right-of-way on Lake Street has ever been determined, and that is an objection we're taking. I don't know that there is any right-of-way and where, and more importantly, it is. I think Mr. McGee and I agree that the Lake Street, as it is laid out, is not always properly within any right-of-way that may be determined. Part of it is on my land, and I think we're in agreement to that. So before we do anything, we have to determine whether we have a proper right-of-way and what it is. Secondly, is Lake Street a public way? If it's not a public way, and I think the research has shown there is no record of any taking of Lake Street and the land of Lake Street to make it a public way in the town of Norfolk. If it's not a public way, Chapter 87 doesn't apply. Chapter 87 applies to public shade trees that border on a public way. That determination has not been made. My fourth objection, I don't know if Mr. McGee is the tree warden or not. The notice I got said he is, but he's also the director of the Department of Public Works, and if he's here, is in his capacity as a tree warden, ruling or passing on the proposal of the Department of Public Works, I would object to that. But as I said, there are 70 trees, and not including it. But what is most important here is I think some of the board members have picked up on. There's no engineering whatsoever. Then there's no calculations or any study at all as to what effect the removal of 70 trees, most of them in wetlands, are going to have on the erosion of Lake Street, are going to have on the drainage of Lake Street. No calculations, no studies have been done whatsoever. We know we have a problem on Lake Street. We know we have a runoff now coming over Medway Street that is filling into Crestbrook Pond. We have no idea what the removal of 70 trees are going to do, nor has the Department of Public Works done any study. They have no idea what it's going to do. We also have the effect of the proposed trees are going to have on the wetlands, and I know that the wetlands is a different jurisdiction, different board, but you've got to consider that in making this determination. There is no study. There is no addressing the issue of what this is going to do. The removal of this many trees is going to do to the wetlands themselves or to the wetlands wildlife, let alone the drinking water that some of us have, private drinking water supplies, not wells, but cisterns coming right out of Crestbrook Pond and the adjoining springs. The road itself, again, I think one of the gentlemen has already picked up on this. We have no engineering. We don't know what elevations they're going to be at. I think Mr. McGee has been very forthright when we ask him what elevations. He doesn't know. He thinks he can do the job. I think he's acting in good faith, but thinking he can do the job, I don't think is good enough. And I would suggest to this board, if this was a private developer, having a private developer coming in and saying, I think I'm going to be okay with the drainage and elevations, you might have a little bit more of a problem. What road, what are the compaction, what is this to be compacted at? What are the elevations? What are the drainage? All of these issues are up in the air. They have not even been addressed. And to take 70 trees down without any concern of addressing these issues along one of the most historic streets in Norfolk, I think would be irresponsible. For the reasons I've set forth in this letter, which I ask that be made part of the record, Mr. Chairman, I ask that this board decline the application of the Department of Public Works.
Okay, do you want to read that so that, read it, so that we have the date and the name in the records?
Just for the record, we're acknowledging the receipt of a letter from Mr. Edward J. McCormick III of McCormick and Maitland Attorneys at Law, dated December 9th, 2014, addressed to the Planning Board, Town of Norfolk, regarding the proposed tree removal on Lake Street.
There's another letter I'd like to get into the record that we received from Nancy and Tony Lancelotti. This was received today, December 9th. This is a follow-up email to our telephone conversation of earlier today, which I hope you can read into the record. We oppose any removal of trees in front of our property at 21 Lake Street. The town has tagged 3 trees for removal. These 3 trees are close to our stone wall and actually behind our mailbox. If our mailbox is not a problem, we don't see why the trees would be. Also, removal of the trees and stumps would most certainly destroy our stone wall. Does the town intend on rebuilding our stone wall? Further, we were told at the meeting last fall, 2013, that the town would not be looking to widen the road. If this is true, there's no reason to remove these trees. If the town believes they are present a hazard to the driving public, then every telephone pole along the street presents the same hazard, and in many cases, it's more of a hazard as they are closer to the road than these trees are. Again, we oppose any removal of the trees located in front of our property. So, on the plan, it says that the street is, that the existing gravel way is that like 18 feet or something like that? I have a hard time, well, it is kind of variable as it goes along. How wide is it as it exists?
Right around now, it varies. I'd say some areas are only 16 feet, probably on the average of 18 feet.
And you're going to have a consistent, what, 20 foot?
20 feet. I was going to prepare 22 feet, and, so I was thinking of paving it to 18 feet. This, bear in mind, this is a
Shoulder.
width of pavement. but then the
With a-
shoulders would...
With a berm, or is it,
Right, right.
is it 18 feet with a berm, or is it just 18
In some
feet?
areas, there'll be some berm, just to, control the upslope and, for erosion reasons and so forth.
So to get to 18-foot pavement, you're going to have to clear back to what?
But, see, there's a lot, that, I don't know how deep you want me to get into this, because I could stay here till midnight and tell you what I know that needs to be done. And Andrea, it's a good question, because as part of this meeting, scenic roads, we have a responsibility to the stone walls. And if you go down Lake Street, you'll notice that some of the stone walls are riding the grade that is true to the grade that was there in maybe the 18 and the 1900s. And it's since changed, whether it be, like I said, maintaining the road or just rain continuously pounding that road, creating potholes. We come in and come back with some more material and so forth. So what we were going to do was grade back to the stone wall, just a little bit in past the stone wall. No good. Just past the stone wall, and then rebuild that stone wall in kind, in place. The change would be in elevation. This is by using the same stones, and it's the only way we can do it. So if you look at, like I said, if you go down that street, and Sunday I'd be love to go down with you, because you might just say, hey, why are you taking that down? And I could do a much better job on site, on foot, pointing to it, so we could talk. So if you
Well,
don't
you're
mind,
more
I
than
will
welcome,
attempt.
yeah.
So, so there are trees and there are stone walls. And almost, there are some stone walls that don't need to be rebuilt, and there's a lot that are. But these, like the walls, the craftsmanship has gone. They're kind of like farmer stone walls, and I think when we're done, you might appreciate the finished product. Done a few of them, not myself, but I've supervised it, and there's probably no sense in thinking that we can do this if we don't have cooperation. I'm offering you my services. You can't tell me that I don't know what I'm doing. I can build you a street far better than what's there right now. I think the quality of runoff will be far superior than what you have right now. We have a situation on that street, for instance, where, I'm fielding calls all the time to go down there and fill potholes and so forth, and we exhaust a lot of time and money on one street where we don't do that with all the other streets in town. And I'm not saying, that it isn't deserving. That's how you grade stone gravel roads, and you need to put this work into it. You go down there, there's a lot of trees on Lake Street, and some of these trees are going to come down, and like I've said many times, they're going to come down at 2 o'clock in the morning. And we don't want them to come down now. It's going to take down wires, and then when you make improvements to a street, you consider that and why some of these trees have to go down. We go down and grade that street and take out some of the potholes, and when we do, what happens in the fall is you have a whole bunch of leaves and a whole bunch of people blowing their leaves onto that street. These leaves compost. They turn the gravel into organic, and it takes all the structure away. So I could go on for a long time telling you why I think we can do this job without engineering, because I'm not moving the center line anywhere, except maybe here and there. But Mr. McCormick makes a good point, and something that we have to make a decision on is the road has drifted off onto his property. And we met out there on site, and I think we can get that road over without taking a couple of real old trees that, I did not post to take down. But again, if we don't, then maybe we go through some kind of land purchase swap or whatever, Ed, that we had talked about before. But there's no building this road if we don't have cooperation. And, if there's a majority of people in this room here tonight that are opposed to having trees down and want to maintain that road as gravel, it still doesn't represent the majority. And I'm not a judge. I don't live in the street. I'm a resident. But we can't continue to live like this on Lake Street, because somebody's got to come up with a remedy. How do we fix this? Because that beautiful lake looks green sometimes from the fines of the gravels, and I'm telling you, it needs help.
Well, Mr. McCormick asserts that this is not a public way, it's a private way. And if so, why are you worried about it?
Why am I worried about that it is a public way or it isn't?
Why are you worried about it if it is a private way?
Why am I worried about it if it's a private way?
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm here because we've determined or agreed that it's a public way. That's debatable, and I think that's a meeting for the selectmen, with all due respect, but I'm here for a tree hearing, and if that needs to be debated, then, you know, I'm not personally attached to it, there's a process for that, you know? You know, I think that street is as good as the last survey, is what I've been taught. The way we've established the right-of-way is that we went in and we found and located the properties of the private lots. And the negative is what's left is the right-of-way.
Excuse me, Steve, just a question. This question of public versus private. I don't think anyone would dispute the fact that there was some very substantive discussions, public hearings, at least 2, maybe even 3 public hearings regarding this whole matter. And really, this is a question, if you'll allow it, Steve, I'd like to ask Mr. McCormick, did you bring up this question of public versus private during that phase of the project when those public hearings took place, or is this something that is just recently being brought up in terms of this question of whether it's public or private?
No, that was discussed at length at the previous hearings, talking about grading like Lake Street, whether this is a public way, whether this is a private way. But they're going to be 2 different issues. You know, whether it is a public way at this point in time for purposes of Chapter 87, is it a public way to be maintained by the town? But I think the Norfolk County engineers, when they came out, they've researched the area, and just as Mr. McGee said, even the right-of-way that the town is claiming is done by the negative. There's no affirmative evidence that the town ever took any of this land for a public way or a right-of-way. So, but to answer your question, Mr. Palumbo, yes, that was discussed before the selectmen.
I guess just to further the thought, Steve, and I can't say with 100% confidence, but I would certainly expect that the town would have done some due diligence to check into that at the time, and I can't speak to that. We should certainly take a look at that to make sure that that is the case, because the basic premise here is that that is a town road, and therefore it's incumbent on the town to ensure that it's safe, which is why the decision was made to pave this road. And then once that decision is made and that conclusion is drawn, then it's just a matter of the engineering details and the implications as far as the tree removal and such. So coming to this meeting, I fully expected that that was going to be the extent of the discussions, is just that, and not a very basic question of whether this is a public or private road.
Jeff, I believe I felt the same way, especially when we go to town meeting, we ask the public to fund this road. We don't want them funding private issues. So I think it was pretty much well assumed that it was a public way at that point. How do you prove that? I mean, you're an attorney, Ed, and I just don't know, where do we go from here to find out if it is? Because the best we can do is, I think there's a drawing around from the 20s or something like that that clearly says public way on it, and sometimes that's all you're left with.
Are you getting Chapter 90 funds for this road?
I believe we are. It's accepted by the state. It's a portion of it is not accepted by the town.
The whole road is accepted by the state,
Yes.
and portion of it's not accepted by the town.
And a portion of it, I think, like 600 or 800 feet is accepted by the town. That's the paved part.
And they didn't accept the rest because it's not doesn't have the requirements for a public way, the paving, et cetera?
No, you know, it's, back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, there was no specifications for the widths of roads and stuff. It got lost somewhere. I can't imagine that a public way was, by this town, given to the state. Or how did the state end up with it? This is just assumptions. I mean, the state has it, so how'd they get it? It had to come from, the clerk maybe back in the 30s or 40s or something. I just don't know.
If the plan is to go through and pave this road and fix it up, the town, if they wanted to move that way, and could always have a taking of the right-of-way by backing in this, as we said, in a negative fashion to come up with the actual right-of-way. But I think if that's determined, the next step, and with respect for you for trying to save the town money to do things and get it done and not go through the other process, I think with his hesitation, the process they're asking for is very valid. My question was, where are the wetland areas and what's coming down there, which would be that filing, is going to have to be determined anyway before our filing's coming down. And I did go out there, I went out there with Bob actually, I looked at a lot of these trees, and just from a glance, you can, I think if you had an arborist out there, you'd find that the roots on a lot of these trees, even though they may be behind one of the mailboxes, is in one of the letters we have here, I think the root systems go well beyond and probably into the pavement, which could be determined. But it seems like where there's hesitation to do this right, you may have to end up spending the money in coming up with a determination of who owns the road, and after that, come up with a plan showing the proposed elevations of the road, Bob, and all of the opportunities on this soft shoulder where there are to put drainage and have it infiltrate naturally can be determined at that time. And also at that time, and one of the things, I happen to sit in the Conservation Commission too, and one of the things that has concerned us for a number of years is the runoff into that pond, which is probably one of the worst discharges we have in this town. And one of the things that we wanted was some type of an improvement done, whether it be a berm or grading or whatever, to ensure that that gravel infiltrating in the pond stops and that the pond be cleaned out. So I think that what some of the folks here that are against taking the trees down, I think they are looking for something a little bit more scientific, and unfortunately, it looks like the town, if they decide to move forward, are probably going to have to spend the money, and then you can go through each section of road, and you could mark the trees, and an arborist could tell you where that root system is, and if it's under the pavement, now you've got justification why you're taking it down. And at the same time, try to determine where this runoff will be and where it can be deposited in a natural way so that the Lake Street now has drainage accomplished, rather than just taking down trees and paving. And I would assume everybody would be for that. And the conservation areas, again, the other thing would be nice to know where the trees are in that buffer zone, Bob, and that being said, how they were going to be taken down and what was going to be done in its place would be a different filing, but yeah, to have that runoff stop going into that pond, and I was sort of half promised that the pond would be cleaned out after that was all rectified, the runoff situation, that I'm hoping that still goes through. But in your quest to try to help and save money and do things quickly, it appears like, I get comments from the folks, but it appears like they want something a little bit more scientific before they start to take the next steps. Just my feeling from what I'm hearing people say.
Just a minute. I just wanted to make sure, Andrea, did you have, it seemed to me as though you had a comment. Did you have a comment to make on this?
I look forward to going out on the site.
Oh, okay.
And bringing, if we can have a full set,
Of this.
maybe 2 full sets of the plans. It looks like there's a lot of decisions that could be made in the field.
What's the linear footage from Medway to Maine, just if you were to calculate, do you know?
It's like 0.8 miles or something like that. So it breaks down to like 4,000 something feet.
I just want to point out another thing. Some of the board members may not realize that there's a policy written by the previous planning board that when we do street trees removals, that we actually replace the trees. I think the policy might say replace in kind, which we have found in practice is extremely hard to do when you take down a 30-foot diameter tree. There just generally isn't enough room to do it. But I'm hoping that future conversations, once we figure out what we're talking about in terms of trees, that we're talking about replacement as part of the decision.
Did anybody else have a comment? I'm going to open it up to the public again. Okay, you had a comment? Yeah, okay.
Take the microphone,
Yeah,
yeah.
Mike, oh, there we go.
I don't know if that works.
Hi, I'm Rich Ciccone. I'm at 30 Lake Street. I'm not represented by Mr. McCormick. I do think the street needs to be paved. My plot plan shows it as a public way. When I bought the property, it was shown as a public way. Trees that exist right now, some of them can stay. Some of them are a hazard. They're hanging over the wires. Maybe a better selection of trees might be an option. Mr. McGee is just trying to simplify the process. The town's been maintaining the road at a cost to all the residents in town, which is unfair. If it's a private way, we all own it. We're on our own. I live in the middle. I don't choose to plow it. I don't choose to grade it. So I think we all have to decide, do we want to pay to maintain the road, or would we like to let the town kind of take control of it? The other issue I have is if the pond is owned by the McCormicks, the runoff is owned by the McCormicks, and whoever surrounds that pond should be maintaining it with silt fence and some kind of area. It's their property, it's a wetland, it needs to be maintained. So I would like to see the road paved. Mr. McGee has tried to make it simple, the residents are making it hard, some of the residents. So I think we're at a stalemate. And that's about it. Thank you.
Okay, you have a comment back there, too?
Tara Werlick, also on Lake Street. I'm a numbers person, so I just wanted to say,
You just need to
Oh,
rip your
turn
button
that
on.
on.
Tara Werlick, Lake Street. I'm a numbers person, and the town approved $135,000 to do the street. I called a local tree removal company, and they said the bare minimum for the smallest tree would be $500 per tree. So we're talking $35,000 to remove 70 trees. That did not include removing stumps. That did not include refilling the holes that were created when those stumps were removed. My concern is, I agree, we need to do something with Lake Street. I've already destroyed one car, losing transmissions. But I don't want to cut all these trees down, then have no money left to finish the road the way that it needs to be done for it to be a usable, likable road for all of us. Also, when we're talking paving, we're not talking paving like you would pave Lake Street. I just want to make sure that you all know that. We're just going to be getting reclaimed. At the last meeting we had, we were told it wasn't going to be blacktopped. We were told it was going to be reclaimed.
My intention is to put a binder course down, and that was going to be it, because
So
we didn't
in
want to
layman
get
terms, Bob,
Sorry, what?
in layman terms, tell her what a binder.
Well, there's two
course is.
courses of pavement. You get the surface ready, and then you throw down 2.5 inches of binder, and then you come back and you put a finer mix on, which is a top mix, and that comes down at approximately 1.5 inches. We agreed that anything's better than what's out there right now, and if we kept it as close to the characteristic of what it is now with pavement, then just a binder for now would, and a binder can last and last. I know, Tara, you mentioned before you thought it was going to break down, but
I just know what they put on my driveway. I
Mhm.
was told 5 to 10 years. In 18 months, I have the same potholes I had before. I don't want to go through cutting down these trees, ruining the nature of the street, which we were told in the beginning that would not happen. But when it's going to end up being probably close to 100 trees gone from Lake Street. And that, in my opinion, is going to change the nature of Lake Street. And it's going to be taking out stone walls that have been there probably for hundreds of years. And yeah, you can rebuild them, but they're not going to be the 100-year-old stone walls that are there now. I moved onto Lake Street knowing what Lake Street was, because I moved within town. And I think a lot of us don't want to change it, but we do want the road to be safer than it is now. And the fact that it has not truly been engineered, I don't want to put a Band-Aid on it and be at the same spot that we are and then have to go back to the town to get more money, because that's not going to happen. People aren't going to want to throw more money at Lake Street when they've already approved $135,000.
Tara, I didn't want to mislead you, just so you know that in the past 5 years, the town has paved a lot of roadways in Norfolk, Seekonk Street, Grove Street, Main Street, And just so you know that all of those roads were done by Mr. McGee with no engineering, and they all come out pretty decent.
But those aren't roads that have a lot of,
Those were roads, many of them had issues.
but had roads beforehand. We don't
Well-
have a road beforehand.
Well, I don't think that's really significant in the engineering that's going to be taking place. I think the engineering taking place is talking about grades and what's underneath the future road and the actual elevations, which is what's been done in a lot of the roads in town. I think whether he's starting from a gravel base or a disruptive asphalt that has potholes everywhere, I would probably start to question what might be better.
I'm just saying, we're not changing the hills and everything else. The water is still going to pool in the same spots that it's pooling in now.
Not
And we're not
necessarily.
putting in drains, we're not putting in,
Well,
I
well,
respectfully disagree.
Well, I've built roads, and I'll tell you that saying that the ponds are going to pool the same way, when you grade a road off and have a crown and you have shoulders on the side for infiltration, that's not true. It won't pond the same way. It just won't.
Respectfully disagree.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, John Ledbetter. I actually just recently moved to Lake Street.
At number,
10.
okay.
There, I think, are two large trees very close that were marked. I think they're older, and I'm more just trying to find out what's done when the tree is cut. Is it cut and do they grind up the stump? Is the stump gone? It goes back to grass, or what is the end result when the tree is cut?
My intention probably for almost all the trees, maybe some could be ground just below grade if it's insignificant. There'd be a cost savings there, but that would be to stump the tree. The root system is just, the stump and the root system is just going to deteriorate and over time. So you pull the stump out, repack it to a certain elevation, bring back loam, and try to get a root system such as grass.
So it would be a finished ground similar to
Right.
what's near it?
Right.
Okay. All right, and for what it's worth, when I called the town, I asked about what the status of the road was. I was told I might have even spoken with you perhaps in the summer. I was told that it was planned to be done. There was a bit of question going on by the people living in the street, but that it was going to be paved. It was just a matter of time. So yeah, I wanted to just see what was going on and sort of check out the process. But cautiously, I'm optimistic in having it done. It's a bit of a scary road to walk down during the night. I walk my dog every night, and it's a little treacherous. I'd like to see it more graded, as it's not a friendly pedestrian street from what I've seen. Anyway, thanks for your time.
Did I see a question over here too? Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. Hi. My name's Scott Dumay. I live at 58 Lake Street. I've lived on Lake Street for about 11 years. Some concerns, I'm clearly on the side of leave the street the way it is. I think we need to address the runoff into the lake. I think we can address that without taking down 100 trees and causing the whole character and nature of the street to change. We sat in this room a couple years ago and heard this gentleman talk about not widening the road. We heard him talking about plans for different material on the road that might not be blacktop. We talked about natural drainage systems. We talked about a lot of things, and it made us feel good, made me feel good that we were thinking of alternate solutions. As a father of young children, I get emotional sitting here thinking about the concept of paving that road. The idea of, and I know we're not debating the paving, we're talking about trees, but as far as I'm concerned, the last time I sat in this room, we weren't talking that this was a done deal that we were going to pave. We were discussing options. And now we're discussing not only paving the road, widening the road, but taking down 100 trees. And as a father and having children on this road and thinking about this becoming a cut-through, thinking about the increased traffic, the speeds, there's got to be a better way to deal with the runoff issue to the lake. The lake is 2 houses down from me, and we're talking about an entire road of trees that are going to be taken down so that we can deal with probably some runoff issues that come, and I'm on the corner of Medway and Lake. So I'm the very first house, and I watch the water run down my street and into the lake, so I know there's an issue there. But the idea of doing the entire road and paving it and widening it and taking all those trees down doesn't, to me, seem like we're thinking about the lake. It seems like, to me, we're doing a quick fix to cut the trees down, pave it, and hope it sticks. And nothing that I've heard seems to indicate that we have a real plan in terms of the road holding up after we pave it. I'm an avid runner, I'm an avid cyclist, I ride around the streets of this town, and we cannot pretend that the streets in this town are in good shape. We've paved Medway recently, within the last 4 or 5 years. It's falling apart. There are potholes, there are cracks, the roads in Norfolk, compared to some of the neighboring towns, we can't sit here and pretend those streets are in good shape. So the concept of being able to pave this beautiful road and expect it to hold up without a real clear plan seems to me to be very irresponsible. So I'm squarely against it.
You just have to remember that our purview is the trees.
Yep.
That's all we're looking at.
Yep.
Okay, go right ahead.
And the
Private 26 Lake. Seeing that we have strayed from the tree issue, I'm going to expand that a little bit. I've lived on Lake Street for 32 years. I'm probably lived there longer than anybody else on this street. This street is a disaster. It needs to be done, something needs to be done with it. When I bought my house, my plot plan clearly showed on the plot plan as Lake Street being a public way. And I'm sure everybody else's lot, their plot plan shows the same thing. If there was anything different, the building department in the town would not have issued building permits for all those houses. And there are quite a few that have been built over the years. Mr. McGee is a professional at what he does. I've seen his work, and it is outstanding. When he gets done with Lake Street, that street will be a marvel. That street will be a showpiece, and the whole town will love it. I guarantee it. Thank you.
Yes. Job, Lee.
Anybody else? Yes.
My name is Tom Frazier. I live at 7 Lake Street. I saw the signs on the trees that they were going to remove some of the trees down. Prior to that, I got something in the mail saying that they were going to set survey up to do some surveying thing. I would just like to know what is the major scope of everything that's going to happen here. I've been here 5 years. There's been some scuttlebutt, some talk about we're going to widen it, we're going to pave it, we're not going to pave it. I would like to know, is there anybody here that can tell me what it is that they want to do, and who is the person that wants to do it?
Not this board.
Okay, so we're here talking about trees.
We're
right?
only here about the trees.
Okay, I hear one of the previous persons get up here and they say, well, we had a meeting and we were going to talk about possibly paving it, and now you're telling me that we are going to pave it, but we're just going to widen it first? So is there going to be another meeting to ask about the paving?
Not with us.
Not
It would
with
be,
us.
it would probably
Okay,
be the
one thing
Board
I
of
can tell you,
Selectmen.
that if you're going to put a binder down, a binder's not going to do anything for you. So if you're going to do it right. You know, so, I mean, I'm against doing anything to the street right now, but I live up on the paved part. Anybody else that has skin in the game down the other end, I'd be behind them 100%, whatever they choose to do, though.
I saw one other question back there. No.
I'm Jay Lyon-Decker. I live at 20 Lake Street, beginning year 18 in that residence. According to what I observe, these 70 trees mean nothing. We have 30 lots that have been built on the street that have taken down hundreds of trees on every lot, or they wouldn't be buildings there. So whether it's 70 trees or 100 trees or any other number of trees you want to work with, We have cleared thousands of trees to put those 30 buildings on that street. There are 2 good farmhouses that have been there for 100 and some years. All the rest of us are living in something that's no more than 20, 30 years old. All the trees came out to build on those lots. Second point I'd like to make, in the last one, the 3 trees behind the mailbox across the street from me have been in the wetlands for however long they've been in the wetlands. It didn't stop a driveway from going in on the cart path through the wetlands, put a house back there. So I'm not listening to the vote on those 3 trees, no matter how many emails or printouts or whatever other information can say on those 3 trees. Their opinion is not valued at this point in time. I'd be glad to see the street finally get the work that it's done. I've teased Mr. McGee, I said, gee, you're going to be putting in underground utilities, water, gas, like real public utilities here in America. Just a teasing. No, none of those things are going to happen. All we're talking about is someday potentially paving the street, but not until he has the ability to work with the property that he needs to have to be able to do something more permanent to the street. Maybe the time can get out of some of the amount of money we have to spend to maintain 8/10 of a mile when we've got 60, 70, 80 miles of streets really to maintain. So, thank you.
Yep.
I'm Tom Benedetti, the Superintendent of the Highway Grounds Division for the Norfolk DPW. And if you do your tour about the trees, and I'm just here to talk about trees, there are trees on there, a lot of trees, that in my regular maintenance duties have to come down because they're dead and they've become an eyesore, a danger to the public. I just took down about $5,000 worth of trees around town that were dead, dangerous, could come down, take wires down, hit people's homes. Really, when you look at Lake Street, we do cutting, we cut the brush, the small saplings on this side of the stone walls because it gives us an idea of how our trucks can get through when we plow, how vehicles can get through when they travel that road. So there are a lot of trees, small things, saplings that'll come down and bend in the snow, that'll block the road. Dead trees. So I think when you say that there's 70, 75 trees, whatever it is, that have to come down, there's a lot of stuff there that's going to come down anyways in the regular maintenance of what we do on the roads. Thank you.
Oh, trees shouldn't be taken down for regular maintenance.
A dead tree.
They can be
Oh,
if they're
well,
dead.
Oh, yeah.
If they're dead, yeah,
Yes,
but...
yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
And
Dead
some,
trees,
and
not
below
alive
a
trees.
certain diameter.
Dead trees only.
Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, we're going to have to continue this because we have to have our site visit. So when is our next scheduled meeting?
Let's see, January 6th is proposed for a time. It's not set, right? We didn't set our next meeting?
No, we didn't set it.
So,
The suggestion was Tuesday, January 6th, right?
Just threw that out there.
it's 4 weeks from today.
That's reasonable. Okay, January 6th it is.
So I move to continue the special, oh no, this would be the
Scenic Road, actually.
Scenic Road tree hearing for Lake Street until January 6th. And Betsy, do you have anything else on the agenda yet?
I just have one, I have a 7:30 sign hearing.
So we'll set it for 7:45.
Yep, okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Boy,
They're always the best hearings.
they are.
What, the tree ones?
Yeah.
I think this is my first tree hearing since
They
I've
get
been
the
on
most
board.
people.
On both sides.
Take them all down. Not too many come
Not too many people want them cut, right? Let's say, Winding Hollow, okay. Oh, okay. Which one's Winding Hollow?
Placido's Holbrook Street.
Okay,
The
that's
well
right. Yeah,
issue.
yeah.
Our friends at the Game and Club Fishery.
That's right. Is he here? Is he here?
No.
It's asking for a continuation.
Oh, is it?
No. Is it?
No?
No, it's
This is a continuation.
it is a continuation.
I don't see them here, though.
It's unusual for him to miss a meeting.
Really?
Oh, here he is.
Oh, he's here.
Does this room have Wi-Fi? Wireless internet?
This room?
You never
used it
before?
I don't know that it does. I don't think it does.
'Cause he's
He's
not-
doing Apple TV.
He's doing Apple TV.
Have you heard of it?
Watching TV
No.
during
See
the
that
movie.
little black device?
Yeah.
So anything that's on his iPad,
Because
he can
it's-
stream through that. So if he had a movie on that, he could stream it to it.
So if it weren't an Apple, you couldn't do it?
Right.
Wow.
It's an Apple product.
Wow.
Trees.
Yeah, so
But I'll take
it's,
Tom's
yeah, it is nice.
suggestion to build my addition.
Okay, I'd like to open the hearing for Winding Hollow. It's the continuation of a
There's
preliminary
6.
subdivision review and open space special permit hearing. Hi,
Hi, good evening, Rick Goodrow with United Consultants.
microphone.
That wasn't mine. Came with this. Hey, Walter, can I? I'm
Yeah,
just
let's
gonna
put 'em all
put 'em
together.
Yeah, sure.
I think there's
Any
2
more?
sets.
Are there
Any more?
more over there?
For those red,
I think I have.
there were two, but
I think there's 2
I think
here.
John tried to steal one.
I'm gonna
John's
check.
trying to steal one.
I was trying to steal one, but
Yeah.
There you go.
Here, take a seat. What section of Blank Street?
Pick a section, any section. Oops.
Go right ahead.
All set?
Yep.
Hi, good evening. Rick Goodrow with United Consultants, here tonight with Tom DePlacido, the owner of the property. I do have some 8.5 by 11s for the board, if, I know there are so many different renditions, I thought we'd just make some new ones, so everyone would know which one we were discussing.
It's like trading cards.
Yeah, but they're not 8.5 by 11, so I'll be able to read them.
11 by 17.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick.
Ray and I can share.
so, yeah, just not on the plan.
So as of our last meeting, there was discussion with respect to the alternative plan, which was open space preservation for a well, potential well site for the town. Unfortunately, Mr. McGee's here, maybe to answer some questions that the board may have, but it's my understanding that the town DPW is not looking to pursue that at this time. So what we have here this evening is our preferred open space development plan, which consists of the cul-de-sac, which would provide service for the 8 lots. So you have your plan of land here. You can see the open space is around the perimeter of the developed area. Looking at the development plan, provided a roadway, houses, septic systems, and driveways to service the houses. Proposing 2 drainage systems to be located here and here. We're also proposing a sidewalk request for this side of the roadway and a connection for the sidewalk from here down to the Pond View existing roadway system. Again, this is an open space development special permit. Certainly some details to work out as we move forward with a definitive. This is the schematic that we pursue. So that's an overview of the project. The board has seen this plan before, but again, I just wanted to make sure we were all looking at the same thing. We have also prepared an updated list of waivers that we would be requesting as part of this, which I could pass out. Board would like to see what those are. Majority of them were requested originally, has been updated. Thank you.
Mr. Waddington? Thank you.
We're actually speaking of 9 lots?
9 lots, yes. That's what we had on the preliminary conventional plan layout, was a 9-lot subdivision.
Can I just put the waiver request as preliminary or definitive?
If the board would like a chance to read through those, we could go through them, whatever you'd prefer.
Do you normally do this, Rick, at the preliminary stage?
It's one of the requirements for the preliminary is a list of potential waivers so that they're on the table. I think it's a good idea so that there's some discussion points. Obviously, some waivers may come off the list, some may come on as the plans develop.
What is the average frontage? Yeah.
102.30 feet,
Does it have to average 100 feet, is that what it is?
100 feet. Minimum of 50, I believe, an average of 100. After you brought that to my attention some time ago, we went through and did the calculation, so we have it for you.
That was done.
And Steve, you had asked early on.
Oh, you know everything I look for then, huh?
He's predictable.
Yeah.
I like that about
He
him.
gave it away.
Yeah.
I like
Gave
that
it
about him.
away.
Okay, Andrea, do you have any questions?
Probably of all these waivers, the one that stands out is probably the traffic impact analysis. I'd like to see what other people have to say about that, what Tom has to say about that.
Right.
You know, the obvious comment is, of all the different, if we can't have a town well here, then this was the best of the other alternatives we looked at.
Mm-hmm.
What did you folks agree on the sidewalks?
What we had talked about was basically connecting to the existing sidewalk at Pondview, running it along the frontage, and then coming up into the subdivision, and not proposing any disturbance to this section of Holbrook Street where the slopes were getting pretty steep.
The last house on the other side of Holbrook Street, that last lot, is there a home there, or is it just an empty lot?
This is an empty lot from this dashed line here in this direction.
No, actually, just behind the lot on your left, going into the cul-de-sac across the way.
In here?
Yeah, that and the one beside it, to the left of it. Are those lots with houses on it, or no?
Yes. Yes, they are.
Does it make any sense, did you folks, when you went out to the sidewalk, talk about those folks from that side of Holbrook Street accessing either the bus stop or a sidewalk? Does it make sense to have a sidewalk across from those streets so that people in those homes could walk across and be on a sidewalk all the way down rather than walk along the soft shoulder? Did you guys talk about that with DPW?
We did. Actually, we did, and it's sort of a balancing act between, we could take a sidewalk so far, but that slope becomes so steep there that once we start to work at it anyway, it just keeps going back and back and back, and we do more disturbance when we're trying to keep, preservation of the look of
Even if you
Norfolk
had-
Street with it. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to do something as far as we can
The
go.
existing driveway, Tommy, across the street is right at the rear of lot number 9.
There's actually one just a little bit further than that.
Right
Okay.
near the curb.
Okay, that,
Yeah, just a tad further than that.
that may be tough to bring it there. Could you at least bring it to get this other house here?
I think it's relatively flat in that area. We probably could do
So that
that.
people could walk across the street, get on a sidewalk, and then go down to the bus stop, rather than walking along the street front to get to where the sidewalk starts at the cul-de-sac.
I don't see a problem with that. We'll check the grades, and if there is, we'll let you know, but otherwise, we could do that.
So you're saying to put a sidewalk along
Well,
Lot
I'm saying
9?
to
Along
put it-
this side
well,
of the street here.
Right here will at least accommodate this fellow going
Yeah,
across
yeah.
the street, but here he's
On Lot
saying...
9?
Yes.
Yeah,
Here
okay.
he's saying it's
Across the
going to be,
street.
the
Yeah.
cuts are going to be too
Yeah,
great.
but what about on the other side of the street?
Then it'll be an
Crosswalk.
incomplete sidewalk. It'll just be a little partial.
Well, still, it would keep them off, keep the kids off the street. That's the issue that John's
That was it,
raising.
yeah, right.
We did discuss putting a sidewalk on the other side. We did discuss at the sidewalk, putting the sidewalk on the other side of the street for portions, but as you can see, this is the edge of pavement, and that's the right-of-way. It's really about 3 or 4 feet from the pavement edge at some locations to the right-of-way. So now you'd really be talking about, easements or takings, which we were certainly trying to stay away from. Obviously, we can't do that, but the town could, but that's why that wasn't really explored much further than that sidewalk.
Do you think it's worth it to us, the residents, if they would give you an easement to put a sidewalk in front of their home?
Isn't it also grade down?
I'm sorry, what?
Doesn't it also grade down?
It does as you approach in this area here, yeah.
But I mean,
It-
off the
It drops
road?
off the road, yes. Yes, exactly. As you approach somewhere in this corner here, it drops off into the front yards pretty significantly.
But otherwise level?
Correct. But I think, Tom's point, if we can get a sidewalk somewhere down into this vicinity here, we're talking about one last house.
I just think it'd be a nice feature if you could accommodate everybody on there with a sidewalk to get to the bus stop. That's all. If it can't be done, I guess can't be done, but...
We might, depending on how we're going to use the open space, if we're going to ask for trails and stuff, it might connect with a trail on that side. I haven't looked at that issue yet. It might.
Yeah, it'd just be nice if these folks here, I don't know if there's children in there, but down the road, if they could access a safe way to get to that bus stop, it is going to be on the cul-de-sac, I'm assuming. To me, that would help the overall area.
Yeah, we'll certainly look at that. As far as we can get it, it's better than not doing anything. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Now, you end the sidewalk really early on the cul-de-sac. Could you bring it all the halfway around the cul-de-sac? Instead of just ending it at the beginning of the cul-de-sac like that?
Yeah, we ended it there anticipating some type of access into the open
Yeah, but
space.
just bring it all the way around, halfway around the cul-de-sac. There's a lot of, I've seen them do that in all sorts of and a lot of times they just put it as a dead end. They don't even bother bringing it back out to the roadway.
If we brought it in the driveway on lot 6, does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yep.
Yes, that makes sense.
These are good points, Steve.
Jeff, do you have any comments on this one?
I think the comments, I have, one question on number 6 of the waiver requests. Waivers requested to not require the diameter, species of trees, station, and offset, and it's under section 4.17.3, street cross sections. Maybe I could just get an explanation from you, and maybe Tom can jump in on that as well, just so I understand, and I have some other questions on other waivers, but that one, maybe you could speak to.
Basically, to accomplish that, we'd have to go out within the right-of-way and locate the size and species of every tree that was within the right-of-way that would be proposed to be removed, and then map those on the tree plan as well as show them in the cross-sections. This is a predominantly wooded area with
White Pines. There's really nothing significant out there. To go through the time and effort and expense to do that didn't seem to
That section talks about every tree?
warrant.
Is the center line of the road isn't flagged, is it?
No, and that's what I was going to suggest, is that we could stake the center line and have a walk with the board if there was something
I'm going to be out in town on Sunday, so.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, I mean, we could certainly stake the center line of the road. And again, that's something at the definitive stage.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but we would certainly like to know that going in, if that work needed to be completed, we'd prefer to complete it as we came forward with the definitive. So I think that's, why we would want to discuss it at this point. But we could certainly have the road staked. If there's anything out there that the board's concerned about or has an issue with, we could certainly discuss that.
Okay. Whether we circle back, is Bob McGee still here? There's a streetlight waiver here, so we should discuss that maybe while Bob is here. Steve, get his input on section 5.12 streetlights. The waiver is requested to not require the installation of streetlights within the right-of-way. The applicant is proposing to install post lights at each driveway, which will be powered by a photo cell. So, one of the other options is to have one street light at the top of the cul-de-sac, safety, what have you, but maybe you could speak to.
Well, it's a matter of safety and design. On a couple of occasions, we've had subdivisions where, what I've done and been asked the same question, I brought it to the selectmen to lay, my opinion, it's just a matter of opinion, whether we want to spend a little bit more electricity if you really need it. These new houses that are being built are just beautiful when you drive down there at night. We go out, and especially in the snowstorm and stuff, but there's lights all over the place. Maybe at an extended length of street where it bends and there could be a dark spot or something like that, it makes sense, and sometimes at the entrance of the street.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there's any bends that are going to have any obstructed
Yeah.
views on this particular street.
And this is not the least safe section of that road.
Right.
These streetlights are all done with sensors. And what I realized the hard way is many times when we have a power outage, the sensor lights go bad and the street lights go off or they stay on all the time. So it's become a problem.
They need a
Especially-
kick.
You've got to go up there with a crane and replace the sensor light because they get shorted. Bob knows, he's been helping out with so really, I think the lamp post like that, I think that's a great idea and lights up the whole street. Most people keep their lamp post on too.
And the last one for me, Steve, I'm not sure if this is because of the elevation issues, the grades, number 9, 4.19.7.5, surface stormwater basin, in terms of the location of that basin to whether it's property line or exactly what that waiver is. I mean, because it lists some different variations, if you will, of that same waiver, so.
We actually have a list of setbacks in that section, and we will be looking at, again, trying to minimize the disturbance into the open space. Up, microphone, sorry. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. We'd be looking at minimizing the distance and disturbance for the basins within the open space. We could certainly situate them further away from the roadway. And in so doing, we're looking at relatively close distances to the property line. 25 feet's required. We're looking at a reduction down to maybe 10 feet. And we haven't finalized the stormwater design, obviously. Also, they need to be 100 feet from a roadway right away. And again, we're trying to keep them close. We could certainly look at some screening to help soften that. We wouldn't be opposed to that. And then lastly, the distances to the houses. But when you look at this, we're, at elevation 189, this house foundation, we're looking at 202 and 198. So we're a good distance above those. Obviously, if this house was 2 feet lower with a basement 6 or 7 feet low, we'd certainly be concerned. But we are lower than the surrounding houses.
Kind of related issue. This lot 9, because it fronts on an existing street, can't be a reduced lot size, and it's right smack up against that basin there, so that's kind of a crunch point.
Sorry, lot 9 what?
It has to be 30,000 square feet. So if that back lot line kicks over, it impacts that basin, so.
Well, we're proposing the frontage to be off of the proposed roadway for this lot.
Well, I'd have to look at the section. It has frontage on an existing public way. I presume because you did lot 1 that way, you were also reading the code to say if it has frontage. Not sure you can declare frontage. If it has frontage, I'm not sure you can ever reduce lot size. But we'll look at the specifics of the language, and I only mentioned it because it kind of conflicts with the basin there.
I think we could certainly put in a strip to sever the
Do that,
frontage.
yeah.
And then, increase into the open space
Or
slightly.
Widen something.
Yeah, that's an easy fix, but we'll certainly look at that code section, thank you.
If there is the ability to read it as you get to choose your frontage, then it's possible that we'd want the frontage to be on the side street, so the driveway isn't on Holbrook.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, that's probably a condition of approval, yeah. Well, no, actually, your driveway has to
Want
be
the
through your
driveway to be
frontage.
with- on the
yeah,
frontage.
Yeah.
Correct. Certainly zoning requires that the access to the lot be through the frontage.
Tom does have a point about
Yeah.
the, frontage on an existing roadway, that the lot has to be a standard-sized lot.
Yeah, the question is whether or not it can be interpreted as primary and
Right.
secondary frontage.
We'll take a look at that.
I guess my question is the consideration of the well site, dead in the water, pardon the pun, but how's that? Can we get a little background as to what's going on?
I could speak to it, or Bob McGee, given that he's here, was discussed at the most recent Board of Selectmen meeting. So just a question about the well sites in terms of this property and what the current...
What we've
thinking
decided,
is.
I'm pretty sure I could speak for the selectmen, what we've decided to do is not go and invest into exploratory testing. So with that, I think we need to make a decision on, because I wasn't sure tonight if we were talking about, because we don't have a site review ready for you from the DPW, because I thought we were talking about 3 different concepts, and it was going to be decided tonight which one to go with. And at that point, we would have done a site plan review, but with regards to that, saving that circle for possible future use, there's 2 things we could do. We would have to accept the design that shows the road just turning at a bend, and that would mean the devastation of that hill behind it and all that gravel, and to me, it's a better design, other than what I just said about, taking down that gravel and so forth. But it supplies you with sidewalk, it gives you great safety advantages with line of sight, it restores the wetland where it's now paved and there's a culvert, and it also gives us continuity with sidewalks where it joins the far corners of this town to the center of town, because it's in our plan somewhere in the future to continue the sidewalks from Overlay up to this area near River's Edge. Hope I didn't, that was a little bit more than what you asked, but, so I think we've abandoned that, it's safe to assume we've abandoned that plan.
So I guess I haven't heard an explanation why. I mean, we were so pushed to consider a design that none of us really felt was the best design, because this was such a huge potential that hadn't come around in decades, and now it feels like a hot potato that just got dropped.
You'll have to tune into the last selectmen's meeting. The Camorra consultant they met, and they determined this a low priority site.
Oh, did they?
Oh,
They
water
also-
select.
Yeah, I mean, it...
And they also
Yeah.
determined that, the thought of taking by eminent domain the land, I guess it was a conversation with town council, and cases show this being possibly a long and tedious, litigation process, so, yeah, it came to me too. I talked to Jack the next morning. It went from a AAA site to a low-impact site after the consultant spoke, so.
Was that based on any engineering or any research?
That was
or-
based on the meeting with the consultant, the town's
But I mean,
water
was the
consultant.
consultant's
They never said what it was based
rating
on.
of it?
They never said what it was based on. They just said it all of a sudden became a low priority site.
I mean, just to clear things up a bit, up until the most recent Board of Selectmen meeting, which was, I believe it was just last week, Board of Selectmen had never discussed Holbrook vis-à-vis a water supply site. So that had never happened. The town administrator, Jack Hathaway, he published a document based on conversations that he had with Bob McGee and with additional input from Phil, who was in charge of the water department, that it might still be a good thing, even though, you know, there are some concerns about how to develop the Holbrook property. It might be a good thing to reserve the ability for the future to perhaps locate a well on that property. Now, the comments that I had made at the last meeting were along the lines of the fact that literally 1 week had transpired between the planning board meeting, our last planning board meeting, and the meeting with the Trout Association, the Trout Club. And it was at that meeting that I think the initial comments were made and were heard that the club was not interested in any type of arrangement with the town to facilitate that property being developed for a future well site. So there was that, I think, important information, but in addition to that, you know, I personally have gone through the analysis that has been done. I have it here. There's been some extensive work done, but besides the fact that it's clear that we need to do something in terms of additional water supply, future water supply, there really hasn't been sufficient due diligence, in my opinion, in terms of looking at the various options. So this was one of perhaps many options available to the town. I don't want to say many, but I don't know that this is the only option available to the town, is the Holbrook site in terms of the location for our next well. And there certainly is nothing in the analysis that was done by environmental partners which would lead the reader to believe that the Holbrook site was really a site of such urgency and importance that it should be given, let's say, precedent over perhaps a more optimal development here by Mr. DePlacido. So I think, you know, back to my comment about some time to do some due diligence, I think the due diligence has been done, and there's going to be additional work by the Water Department and Mr. McGee in terms of taking a fresh look at what other options are available to the town, and that's what we need to do.
All right. Walter, do you have any comments?
No.
John, do you have any more?
Nope.
Tom, is there anything that you've observed in here?
No, maybe just to comment on Andrea's question about a traffic study. You know, the 9 homes aren't going to be generating a lot of vehicle trips, but whether you call it a traffic study or engineering, there does need to be a careful evaluation of site distance across the frontage and what, if anything, can be done within reasonable constraints to improve that. So if that's a traffic study, that portion you don't need capacity or anything like that.
Ray, have you observed anything in this, or do you have any comments?
I'm going to jump on to Tom's comment and jump on the lighting issue. I understand, you know, that there's issues with lighting in some locations, but there may be a little bit of research looking at the intersection with Holbrook of the cul-de-sac and providing some lighting in that location, basically for safety. You know, if you drive around Norfolk, you drive around some of these streets, you get to an intersection, there's, in many cases, no lighting at all. Without your headlights, there's no way to tell what's going on in those intersections. So I think you need to be careful looking at that and see if there's anything that can be done there. Second thing is, Tom was right in terms of the frontage on Holbrook Street. If you do want to have lots on Holbrook Street, or that lot 6, I think it was. 9, you would need a waiver from the zoning on that. But that's a requirement on the zoning. One thing that struck me as I looked at the development plans that's proposed is the lot to the right, which I don't remember what the number is, but it's got a couple of kettle holes there. I thought just interesting in looking at the site, those were interesting sites. Personally, I felt like that would be a location that I'd like to preserve on the site as open space if we could. And then looking from the developer's perspective, I try to think of, okay, how do we recreate that lot someplace else? And the only way you can do it is to extend the road to the right. So instead of bending it to the left, it's going to have to extend to the right. And again, I know that pushes you up against some of the slopes that are back there. But I just asked the question, is that even a possibility to extend the road, maybe to reduce that lot or create that lot somewhere else? I see what you're doing, and I see this, you're pretty tight in what you can do there.
Yeah, again, we were trying to minimize the roadway length for future maintenance. I've had some time in these two areas here, and they look to be excavated gravel areas.
Oh, they are?
From the past.
Okay.
It's certainly some benched areas over in here, and that's what it appeared to be. We did do some preliminary testing, soil testing in there when we had done some work for the septic system testing. So that's certainly what it appeared to be.
Okay.
Nothing of great significance. This one, on the other hand, was a little different. That did not appear to be, we didn't dig, but it didn't appear to be an excavated gravel area.
Sure.
So that one is included in the open space.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could make a comment just about the streetlights. In other subdivisions in other towns, what I've done is actually have a very nice lamp post at the end of the driveway with a photocell on it, and then it would be as a deed requirement for each homeowner to maintain that with the photocell and the light post. And in this instance here, if you have 9 house lots with an average frontage of 100 feet each, you basically have a nice lamp post about every 100 feet going down the street. It's very appealing, especially if you match all the lamp posts. It creates a common theme, and it's very attractive. It comes on every night with the photocells, and each homeowner, when you have the whole project like that, each homeowner, nobody wants to let their lamp post go out because, that's the only one that's out. It's sort of a thing that everybody sort of, polices themselves with it and wants to make sure the light bulbs are changed and things too. It takes the expense off the town, it's in the deed, and it can be very attractive on that. So that's what I've proposed in other towns. It's worked very well, and actually folks really like it.
Can I ask, are you proposing that, you said at the driveways, but it's a 50-foot right-of-way with 24 feet of pavement, so are you speaking of those light posts being in the right-of-way, or?
They would not be in the right-of-way unless the board actually wanted to bring them into the right-of-way, and just create like a little easement on that for lamp post, which I don't have a problem with, and I don't think any homeowner would either. I mean, it just gets a little bit closer to the street. But if you figure if it's a 50-foot right-of-way and you've got a lamp post on each side, most times they'll cascade 20 or 25 feet of light. So even if they were on the right-of-way, they would, illuminate things actually very nicely on both sides of the street. So it tends to work very nice.
I think Ray was talking about the lampposts at the street in addition to those for a safety factor, because normally we put streetlights at the end of a cul-de-sac, and in this case, I think Tommy's idea is much more effective, but I think Ray was saying in addition, where this is a sight distance area, lighting up that intersection there for people coming in and out would be a hell of a... Is that correct, Ray?
Yes.
Yep.
That's done all over town, is to have a street light wherever there's a street going off of a main road. I know it's
Sometimes.
We haven't.
Well, almost
we haven't been
everywhere
doing
that
it
I've...
Right, sometimes.
How many cul-de-sacs have streetlights in them? Because I know that it's built in as a requirement, it's part of our rules and regulations to have a streetlight in the end of the cul-de-sac, but the Board of Selectmen tends to not want those streetlights on the ends of cul-de-sacs, so we usually don't put them in. Do you see any change of that?
What I see, Steve, is, it's all underground utilities now. So to have a street light on a telephone pole, we'd say, sure, that's great, but there's no more telephone poles. So when we get to an architectural design and stuff like that, and that becomes just another thing that we need to maintain and so forth. So I think Mr. DePlacido said it best to just, have those lights at the end of the driveways, out of the right-of-way, I think. But at the intersection where we can't put a telephone pole, or there is a telephone pole, we mount the light on it. It's,
Yeah.
Well,
Makes great sense.
coincidentally, does there happen to be a pole on the opposite side of the street or near the intersection here?
can't remember.
I can't either, but I've been down that street a few times.
There's one right here. That's the closest one.
That's
There you go.
yeah, okay.
Next to that driveway.
Pretty close.
Yeah, the last thing, too, is even if it isn't the expense and the headache of the maintenance, these street post designs, these people are fly-by-night. You can't get a guy to, you can't get a business to stay in business until it's discontinued, and you can't buy parts for them. And I'm starting to experience that more and more as subdivisions get older. The car backs into a street lamp, and it falls down, you need a pot. Can't get the pot. So, I think it's...
So you don't want them?
Excuse me?
So you don't want them?
Not really, I don't, I think it's a disservice if all of a sudden we have to, if a lens is out or a shading part of the light's out or the cradle of the light's out, that, we can't get that part, we have to replace the whole light with a new design. And who do we pick then that won't go out of business in 10 years? And they don't even let you buy direct now, I gotta go through Granite City. It's a real headache.
Ray, does a light on that existing telephone pole work?
Yeah, that would be fine. That would make sense.
So you're not in favor of having the posts at the ends of all the driveways that are...
Oh, I am.
He does.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, not only
Because
does...
your argument is the same for those, that...
Yeah, but he wants the homeowners to have
It's not
to replace
his.
it. Not the right of way.
Big difference.
Oh, it's a much,
Well,
it's a residential
that.
unit.
Well, I mean, replacing one versus replacing hundreds at a time, I
Yeah.
mean, it's...
Well, it's a residential unit, glow with a light bulb is a much different animal than the units he's trying to buy for a street light, so.
All right. So, anything else? Does anybody from the public have any comments or questions? Yes.
Jerry Bloom, 30 Holbrook Street. I live at the corner lot there of Pondview Road, and I find this conversation about safety of the children very interesting, because Tom built 7 houses across the street from me. Why was there never sidewalk discussion then for those houses? And those kids walk right down Holbrook Street to the school bus stop, which is at the corner of Pondview and Holbrook Street in front of my house. And as far as sidewalk discussion, and somebody mentioned, would the residents agree to an easement? The town came in, I've lived in that house for 30 years, and the town came in and told me that they were going to build a sidewalk on Pondview Road on my land, which they did. And then Mr. McGee, I had him come to my house last year because for 29 years, they've been plowing snow onto that school bus stop at the corner of Holbrook and Pondview, and then not only just plowing it in there, but then bringing a payloader in after the storm and just piling it up. And so my question is, A, I would never agree to an easement because I have a sidewalk on my property now, which I really didn't want, but it is for the safety of the kids. But the kids that walk to the school bus on Pondview Road and on Holbrook Street all have to walk in the street because I am the only person that snow blows my sidewalk. The whole rest of the street, on Pondview Road, the neighbors actually blow their snow onto the sidewalk. So how are the kids safe? Because they're walking out on the street, and then at the corner of Holbrook and Pondview, they're standing out at the corner while the school bus comes rolling down the street. Now, Mr. McGee did come down and see me last year, and he did have some trucks come and remove the giant, 7-foot pile of snow that was on the corner, and I just discussed with him preventing this from happening again. But what good are the sidewalks if nobody plows them, if the town doesn't plow them, or if the neighbors don't plow them? What good are the sidewalks? And why were there no sidewalks for the 7 houses that Tom built on Holbrook Street just not too long ago, across from my house?
Those are approval not required lots. Those are existing lots on the existing roadway. It doesn't go through the same kind of review that this subdivision goes through.
So are we talking about a sidewalk on their side of the street or on my side of the street?
On your side of the street.
Okay, and this would be something I would have to approve, or you could just come in and take my land?
Well, it depends on whether or not, where the right-of-way ends, where your property is. If the right-of-way ends 10 feet into your property, then the town has the option to be able to put in a sidewalk.
Great. All right, that would be my main objection, is the sidewalk and the snow factor, and this conversation about safety of the kids, which is kind of a joke in my neighborhood, because they aren't safe at all. They're out walking on the street to the school bus and then standing out on Holbrook Street waiting for the bus.
Can you imagine if we perpetuated that bad behavior by actually asking for it not to be safe?
Well, it's only going to be safe as long as Mr. McGee is very cooperative. The previous a person in his capacity wasn't as cooperative as far as removing that snow, but he has been good, and we're going to continue to conversate about that. But the sidewalks are no good if they aren't plowed.
Well, you still have other seasons.
Yeah.
Winter's only one season.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have to review this anymore, or is,
Are there more comments? Anybody else?
I thought were there any more comments? No, I didn't think
You
so.
talked about the possibility of going out on Sunday?
Oh, to here? Oh, I thought that we were going to do that when it gets closer to the definitive stage.
We're going out, we might as well.
Well, if we're out on Sunday, yeah, if you want to stake the center line of that road, we can take a look at it on Sunday.
Sure.
Does the board wish to have any of us there just to walk the site, the center line, or direct?
If you want to be there, we can probably, if it's the center line, I think we can figure out where we're at.
Yeah, it'd be nice, though, to get a sense of the depth of the lots.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Sorry, what was that, Adrian?
If you were there, we'd have a better sense of the depth of the lots.
Does the board have a time?
Well, we're going to be at the other one at 9. That's going to take at least a couple of hours.
It's quite possible, yeah, because there's going to be neighbors.
And it's 0.8 mile.
And back again.
And back. So that's going to be a couple of hours. So we're probably not even thinking of getting there until 11:30. And that's pushing it, right?
I'll do the cul-de-sac. This should be pretty quick.
Oh, you want to do it before?
I mean, it should be pretty quick, though.
Oh,
I think
at 8:30, meet here at 8.
hours should be plenty to just eyeball, it'll take, it's only 500-foot cul-de-sac.
Yeah, all right. 8:30?
At Town Hall?
No,
At-
we should meet
at,
here.
It's tough parking.
Park on Pondview.
Yeah.
Did you have to walk in the
Mr.
street,
Boone,
though,
okay.
no sidewalk.
Is 8:30
Not
okay?
yet.
Okay, yeah, all right. So we'll do this one at 8:30 and the other one at 9 o'clock. Excellent. So we're going to continue this. When do you want it to continue to? Our next hearing is on, our next meeting is on the 6th of January. If you want to go beyond that date, we'll have to pick another date for a future meeting.
Just curious, what's the next natural step after you do your site walk? Do you then vote on a special permit for this?
We'll have a decision on a special permit, yeah.
Okay. I guess the next meeting would be happy with that.
All right, that's probably good, because there's probably not much more to cover.
So I'm going to move to continue the public hearing for Winding Hollow special permit hearing until January 6th at 8 o'clock.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Rick, can you check and see if there's a town right-of-way in front of the Holbrook Street down to Pondview?
Yes, we have that plan.
Good, okay.
So we have where the right-of-way line is. It's actually, you can actually see the dash line, steps back quite a
So you
bit.
can put the side right there with no taking. Okay.
Actually about 10 feet from the pavement edge to the right-of-way there.
That was a good guess, huh?
What about the other side of the street?
That's right on the property.
No, on the other side of the cul-de-sac.
Oh. The other side.
Here? Talking about a cul-de-sac on the other,
other side of
sidewalk on the other
Pondview?
side, yeah.
The other side of Pondview?
No, on the other side of the new cul-de-sac, having a sidewalk on the other side. Yeah.
This side, no, this is pavement edge is very, very
So
close.
one can't go there, so the question would be how far to bring it down in front of that lot to the left of the,
And I think Sunday morning would be a
Okay.
great time to look at it.
good, okay.
Right while we're out there.
Yeah, I know we only have a half an hour, but whenever we do an open space, I'm always interested in whether or not we can do a trail through it on the developer's dime. So I'd probably be interesed to see.
Are there any existing
Is there
trails?
anything nearby?
Nothing that I can...
Back to the Fish and
Private
Game Club.
property, so I don't know.
There's really not any trails that I'm aware of. You know, I've been in and around this property quite extensively, and I
Okay,
certainly
Trail
can
Club.
appreciate the trails, but I will say,
Looks tight.
you've got some very steep slopes, and if you
Yeah.
talk with one of the other agents for the boards here, conservation agent, she had a very difficult time maneuvering up and down those hills. So it is very, very steep.
Yeah, we're not all 40. Some of us are
But,
younger.
you know, something over in here, certainly, could be looked at.
Probably would love to build trails with retaining walls on the side just to help, I'm sure it would.
Yeah. All right,
Okay.
so,
You haven't seen the deer runs through there? You haven't found any deer runs through there?
There are deer.
Yeah, no, I know, but on that side?
Over in this area, I didn't really notice.
Okay.
But I did spook about 4 or 5 one day, right in this area.
okay, so we'll be moving on to MacArthur Ave now, which is continuation.
Thank you.
That's it.
Does that mean they're requesting one, or is it?
No,
are
this
we
is
actually hearing
this is
one?
a,
That's continuance from the last meeting, but
oh, but did they request the continuance?
he didn't request a continuance.
You received a letter.
Oh. Well, we'll take it upon ourselves to continue it then.
It's some,
Oh, yes.
is it-
Jerry Conton, 69 Bachelor Ave. Why does this keep getting continued? It's been over 11 months now.
good question.
Probably not ready.
Steve, we have to,
I want to say 7 months ago, you were supposed to get an attorney to find out who owns the land, whether the land, we have a letter from the town saying that land wasn't going to be, that road wasn't going to be developed. I mean, I think he's had enough time to find out what's going on. I mean, wouldn't you think? And then I have another problem is, why is a town employee representing a woman's piece of property? He works right here in the town hall. Why is he representing the town board when he's a town employee? Isn't that a conflict of interest? I mean, I've discussed this with other people, and they don't really know, but I mean, I don't know if everybody on the board realized that Mr. Robbins is a town employee representing a woman from Belmont who owns a piece of property. I could understand if it was his property, but it's not his property.
I'm not sure if we have any rights as a board to get into ethics. Isn't that something that's reported by,
Well, yeah, you probably find out about that, because I did call the Mass Ethics Commission on that, so,
I don't
you know, I
think
don't know
that's
whether
in our
they
jurisdiction, is it?
contacted you or not.
No.
I think that would pretty much be brought on by a neighbor or resident on their own to the ethics
Yeah,
department?
no, I did, so you,
Okay.
the town will probably be hearing about that. But I just don't understand how that works, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
I know people in other towns, I used to work for a town years ago.
Yeah, I think your comment's valid. I think that a lot of consideration may be given down the road for when people apply for continuance. I know a couple of other boards have just started doing that. There's a specific reason for the continuance. And then if they continue on for so long, we have the right to close the hearing where nothing is being done, because we have a right to the public to give them a smooth process and not have long delays and have them try to keep up and show up and not come. I understand.
I got a calendar at home every month.
no, I agree.
You know what I mean? I can't make plans that night until, you know, I call Betsy and she's been good. Oh,
I
the
agree with
meeting's
you.
been canceled, you know what I mean? So, you know, my time is,
I understand.
you know.
Yep, valid point.
I don't think it's right of us to just deny it as of tonight because they're not
I
there.
understand,
But
but
we
if we
will
could set-
warn them that if they don't show up at the next scheduled hearing, that they face the possibility of it being denied.
I think we can talk about that, Ray, in the future, having something put into our regulations that requests for extension should be in writing with a reason.
I believe that's in our regulations.
Yeah,
It is.
it's
I
But
think
if
we
you
just
gotta-
need
in the
to-
regulations
Forget about putting it
and
in
common
the-
practice.
Well, I think he did ask for extension, so it's like December
In the past,
31st or
yeah,
something,
he
yeah,
has.
but, I mean, how long is it gonna go on, you know? It's gotta come to an end sooner.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, trying to strike a balance, and we have taken that action in the past where it's been abused, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
an oversight is one thing, but if it becomes a pattern, then
I mean, we're no further along than we were last February, you know.
Right,
we
you're right.
We-
You're right.
We've gone nowhere, you know, I mean, it's been, and he keeps saying he's gonna get an attorney and find out this and that, and that's been done, I don't know.
So I'll make a motion to continue the MacArthur Ave one-lot subdivision to January 6, 2015 at 8:15.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Betsy, we're going to let him know that it's been scheduled, and if he doesn't show, then he faces the possibility of us denying it.
Or acting on the information that we have in the
All right,
file.
yeah, okay.
We should probably get that information in advance, because if he's not going to withdraw it, we should probably be specific
you. Good
about
night.
the information that hasn't been provided, just so somebody doesn't turn around and appeal it, so.
He should have tasks that he lists that have to be done with the continuance so that they can be measured, so we can't have the same, like, lack of engineering month after month after month.
Yeah, we know, but it should be in writing, you know, lack of clarity of ownership of the right-of-way, and other issues. We actually did a report a year ago on this that had a laundry list that hasn't been responded to. So that there are reasons, but we should be prepared to say what they are if we're gonna deny it. So.
All right. Toils End. Request to release lots 29 to 33, 65 to 71, 73, and 74. Now, there was a whole bunch of issues that were outstanding. How are those doing?
Thank you. For the record, my name is Mark Mastriani, and I'm here representing Pulte Homes of New England. And with me tonight is Michael Rosati of Marchanda and Associates, who's our engineer who's been helping us on resolving and working to resolve the issues. So, the last time I was here before you for the lot releases, we had discussed some erosion control issues up at the site, some drainage concerns, issues up at the site, and also some operation and maintenance issues. And we received a letter from the Conservation Commission, which was copied to the Planning Board, and to Mr. McGee and to us, with a kind of a list of our issues and things that we needed to do in a timely fashion. So, since that time, we've made significant progress on cleaning up the site and improving and installing the erosion controls to improve the stormwater quality at the project. And we've followed the memorandum or the recommendations of Mr. Houston and his firm. We've also submitted an operation and maintenance plan to the board, a construction operation and maintenance plan to the board that Mike prepared, and we're following that. And we owed the board drainage calculations to submit to the board, to Mr. Houston, of how the project is working today. And we have submitted a drainage report to the board, and we have been working with Mr. Houston. Mike and Tom have been coordinating back and forth on the situation and our proposal and our proposed improvements. We've recently met as late as today, and we've received some further comments to our proposed solution improvement plan, and we communicated that we'd get to work and we'd start to try to respond to the comments again in a responsive and as timely as we can. So we have a little bit more work to do, but we've done a significant amount of work to date, and I hope the board can see that.
Have you been up there, Ray?
Yes, a number of us have been up there. The conservation agent has been up there, visited there today.
How's it doing in the rain today?
Well, I get some pictures, but I think I can be a little bit more definitive than Mark. I sat in the meeting with Mr. Rosati, their engineer, Mark, Pulte representatives, Ray, Tom, Dave Sanderson, and myself. And in a nutshell, unfortunately, the pictures I took are still discharging over the silt fence, actually, cloudy and dirty, and that's a separate issue. But as far as this board goes, what we found out is not only is a basin needed, a big basin is needed, and it appears after our conversation, and Mike had submitted the first drainage report, with the drainage basin there detracting the water, it looks like they still need other drainage measures, whether they be underground or a much bigger basin. So basically, even with the basin from before, the drainage is still not adequate. It appears at this stage, and I think Mike can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am, that he is redoing the drainage. He's going to talk with Tom about other mitigating factors to try to control the drainage. They still are going to need a waiver from this board for discharging post-volume runoff onto abutting properties. What's in question is also them needing an easement from the Conservation Commission to take this water and discharge it onto conservation land, which in this case is wetland. I told Mark, this board's purview of the drainage will be done when they come to terms and we decide whether we want to give them a waiver to increase the volume, and that would have to go hand in hand with the conservation if it's applicable, which I think it is, giving them an easement to do that. My position was not to do anything punitive. I want the water cleaned up. I want it to be, I don't think it's able to be cleaned up now with the volume of discharge coming out. The drainage study, so in effect, we had a part of that subdivision, a 1,500-foot roadway with no drainage. The drainage is being worked on now. It's, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but it's going to need waivers because the volume is going to be discharging off. So this board will have to give it a waiver. And as I explained to them, they're also going to need to rebond it. My guess is the cost is going to be significant. They're going to have to be placing a bond to do this work whenever it's done. The new drainage has no alternative but to be discharged along channels in the buffer zone near the 50-foot no-build line. So they were going to have to be filing with the Conservation Commission a notice of intent, and at that time we will discuss the altering of the wetland, which our consultant says has been altered and there is debris there, and also we'll be working on the discharge onto conservation land and allowing them, if my board says they are allowed to do, is to put their discharge functions in the resource area, the buffer zone. So Mike has got the dubious honor of coming in midstream and trying to figure this out and create it from scratch. There's existing conditions there. In Mark's regard, they did not sell that lot that we had talked about because that lot is going to be mostly basin. And again, even with that, the discharge is not going to be contained on the property. So they'll be coming back to us with a redone drainage plan, and my guess is they'll be asking this board for a waiver for a volume discharge, and they'll be asking the Conservation Commission for easements to allow that water to go onto conservation land.
Now, could you describe the potential
Right, you know,
plan?
potential-
I haven't seen anything. I hear
I-
you describing something.
Yeah, I
but
think
haven't,
Mike might have brought a copy with him. This is the
Oh,
plan that we went over today, that Tom and he had some conversation, and I think it was determined that more work has to be done, and more areas for recharge have to be, have to be,
You can take that down if you want.
Could you, could, when you put up the plan, could you get to his endpoint with a little more detail?
Sure.
Thanks.
The first picture I'm going to show you is the subdivision. I'm sorry it's at a small scale here, but I just wanted to point out to you that this is Toils End Farm, and this is Maple Street down here. And this area in gray are all the lots that Pulte has sold to owners, to private owners. So the white is really the only, at least at this point in time, practical area for us to use to try and mitigate for the discharge that's down in this area here. Which is, and this black line that I show right here, this is the top of the road of Toils End, Warren Drive. So everything from this side drains back into a detention pond over here. This water comes down directly and discharges on the side of Maple Street, which is the concern that the Conservation Commission has down in here.
And this also?
Okay, so this is a lot that we have available in, on our current proposal. This is a blow-up of that lot. So there is a long neck of land here, and then it blows up into this area here, which is where we're proposing a pond to mitigate for some of the water that's coming, that currently comes down from the high spot, which is located down in this area, comes all the way down to Maple Street down here. So our first go-around, or our first attempt to mitigate for the water down here was to bleed off as much water as we could with the topography that we have and bring a drain line down from the street and discharge the water into this pond here, which would eventually discharge down into the swale and run down to a wetland further down Maple Street on this side of Maple Street. There are some issues with this that we need to resolve with potential wells that are downstream. Mr. Houston and I have talked about that, so we're looking to try to mitigate for that. So one of the first things I'm going to look into is maybe potentially other areas that we can bleed off some water that would come in this direction and this direction. We don't have a lot of room, but we do have some, so I'm looking into the practicality of that, maybe coming down to another lot somewhere, water into the ground that way.
Can you give us an idea of what percentage of the runoff, separate the well issue, but just because of the elevations and distances, what percentage of the runoff issue can be eliminated at that location by removing all the runoff above that location?
Right, so what we determined that roughly in the 100-year storm, we use the biggest storm, I guess, we have roughly, right now, the way the current condition is, 25 CFS running down to Maple Street from the site. If, with this bleeding off of the water, we will cut that down to about 12, so basically almost in half.
That was the original proposal?
A variation, yes. There were various size basins with various configurations to get the water down there in prior plans.
I do remember with this basin here that we had issues of the water going onto a butter's property, and that the wetlands that you were using is other people's private property.
Yeah, so we've been discussing that potential issue, and what we did when we first started was to, doing an analysis, there's design points and there's design points. In this case here, there's a swale that runs off the property in this direction here, and natural depression, right, inflection in the topography. So what we did was, we took a watershed to this point right here from the site, and we tried to quantify that. So we have basically So this orange, this aqua, I guess, and this blue, this would represent the total flow from the site that runs in this general direction to that wetland you're talking about, Steve. The SC1, this right here, this would be what actually gets down this swale. So that was the benchmark that we were using in designing the pond, to try and get the flow out of this pond to be lower than that, and as low as we could get, to tell you the truth, because we realize this is a sensitive area. Since I have this plan here, this red area and this green area are the portions of the site that drained to Maple Street prior to any development happening. And the purple area is actually an area that drained down through this property here. So we tried to quantify what these numbers are, and so we would know how good we were getting this proposal.
Excuse me, what does that mean, it was draining to Maple before any development? You mean before any roads were cut, just because of the...
Natural topography. This is the part of the site that contributed to this area. I believe that was, if I added these two up, it would be 11 CFS. Current conditions,
Right, meaning
10.3.
Pre-development.
Pre-development, right.
You agree with that, Tom?
Yes. In the file, when we were looking at this, what seems to have happened, because we found 3 different plans of the basin before it was discontinued. And one of the plan also had a drainage outlet going to a different part of Maple Street. But there was a letter in 2010 from Bill Domi, who was the health agent at the time, and he called in some environmental engineers, and they looked at it because the neighbor behind there is a strong, he's strongly against the basin. And they determined that the water quality that was discharging from that basin was unhealthy for the wells around there. So it was just after that letter, whether it be coincidence or not, that basin, first of all, they discontinued the connection to Maple Street, and then after Domi's letter, they discontinued that basin, just took it off the plan. So the question was, we had talked about moving that basin more frontwards on the lot so that there could be little or no spillover onto that neighbor's property where the wells are. We also talked about taking that big lot, and actually it wasn't with Mike, but when he left, Tom and I, putting some type of a swale system in that lot to have the water filter through. Is that correct, Tom?
Yeah.
Infiltrate all the way through rather than just having it detained. Because on a 100-year storm, that's still going to hold 3 feet of water.
We've had occasion to look into that area in some detail, actually, with Betsy's assistance and Wade. We went through the Board of Health files, and every one of the lots down gradient of that basin has a private well. They're just all over the place there. And there is an issue, although it's not readily quantifiable, but there's an issue of concern about the contaminant burden in stormwater being recharged in close proximity to a well. The closest well is on number 53 Maple Street, which is the lot, yes, right there. And the well is a little over 100 feet from the property. So, a conservative way to do this, if we could keep the basin on the subdivision side, say, yet another 100 feet away, and right now it's only 25 feet away, that I think would give us a pretty decent margin of safety there. It's not a geohydrologic analysis to say what portion of the well's drawdown is contributed by that pond or whatever. It's kind of a rule of thumb thing, using kind of Title V as an example, and it's different, but you're supposed to have a 100-foot setback between a leaching field, which is a source of contamination, and a well. Well, in this case, it's a periodic and lighter contaminant burden in stormwater, but it's really big when it does get recharged, so it's a periodic type of thing. So you can't say the 100 feet is exactly analogous, but if we took 100 feet and we were able to double it, that certainly would be a conservative approach. And even better, if we can get a whole bunch of recharge in that narrow neck of the lot all the way down there, the further away from those houses you keep the recharge, the better. The other issue is if that basin moves back, there's kind of the same issue there that Mr. Weddleton alluded to with respect to the Conservation Commission. It's discharging controlled runoff from a point source very near a property line. Now, Mr. Rosati's calculations, which we've looked at briefly but haven't done a detailed review, his calculations indicate that the post-development discharge there is less in terms of peak rate, but still, where there's a sensitivity on the abutter's part in particular, that issue of whether there's a down gradient easement necessary it's a question. And so the degree that we can diminish the significance of that by getting a little further back from the lot line, so much the better. It's the current plan that is a house lot, and Mike's design was trying to keep a house there as opposed to just giving up that lot. And there might be an opportunity to do that by kind of switching the house and the pond. It would be easy without the house, but if that's not doable, then maybe you can just switch it. Or find other locations, so less water goes there and it's more spread out.
I recall concerns in the past with wells in proximity to detention basins, but there was an elevation component to it. I don't know that it ever has come up, this is new information to me, where that distance is an issue and it's not related to some issue.
Well, it's a three-dimensional thing. It's a cone of depression. It's why in municipal wells they have that 400-foot radius, but the order of magnitude is different. Municipal wells withdraw fractions of a million gallons a day, and a house withdraws, a couple hundred gallons a day or something. So, but you do get a little mini cone of depression, and it also depends on the depth of the well. I mean, that's a new house that's there. And so I'm assuming that it's got a pretty deep well there, so, it's going to have a pretty deep cone of depression, and the contribution of that basin, even though it's in reasonably close proximity, the well is going to draw from other sources too. And, the water in the basin by DEP policy has to have 80% of the total suspended solids removed. The heavy metals burden in stormwater is associated with that. The heavy metals tend to cling about the particulates, so if you drop the particulates out, you're taking down the heavy metal burden. We'll have some kind of separator structures with respect to petroleum products and things like that. There are other things you can't take out too readily, like salts and nitrogen and phosphorus and things. So, you know, I'm speaking qualitatively, but in general, the degree that you can keep the basin further from a well, so much the better. And there's also, as I say, the surface water issue, which is an issue to the neighbor, and it may potentially be a stormwater easement issue, so.
So, you know, given the fact that, you know, if you look at how the project progressed and how, and maybe you can clarify this for the entire board in terms of how the change in design happened. Did that abutter have a legitimate opportunity to participate in this process through public hearings, or is it because of the way that this whole thing has transpired that now this abutter is giving input that?
I don't know the specific cause and effect of how the change came about. I do know that Mr. Domi, as the former health agent, wrote a letter that said that, and I'm paraphrasing it, but something to the effect that it's obvious the basin should not be here, or words to that effect.
This abutter, Jeff, wasn't current. This was years ago when they discarded the basin.
This is about 2008 or 9.
Right. That's the last time he spoke, and that's when the study by the Board of Health was done to actually review the discharge near his lot.
I mean, I think it was just an opinion, you know, the engineer and the geohydrologist that were working on the wastewater plant joined Mr. Domi in a site walk, and I think, I don't have evidence that other analysis was done other than visual observation. And
I think I may recall this, actually.
You're in Board of Health.
Yeah, I think I do recall there was a question about proximity of a basin to a well, and maybe this is that basin, because
So
it did
the-
involve, I believe.
it is, it was that basin, but
what
I
happened
don't,
is it just went away because the
Exactly.
basin went away, but not for legitimate reasons, I guess. I think that's what happened.
yeah, I think to some extent, perhaps, responding to that issue, or maybe for some other reason, could have been cost. You know, they ended up with the same number of lots there without a road. I don't know the entirety of the motivation, but I do know the drainage analysis that was evaluated for the subdivision had the basin there. There was never an evaluation of a subsequent drainage analysis. So the impact of taking that road and basin and everything out was never really evaluated as part of the planning board process, as far as I know. So the net result of that is that Warren Drive became the only means of discharge of that stormwater for a fairly long segment of that roadway. So the concept here, and it certainly makes sense, and it's certainly a good faith effort on the applicant's part, is to kind of reconstitute that original concept of putting recharge there and diminishing the excess volume down on Maple Street. But I think as a result of the evaluation we did of abutting properties, post Mike's initial report, we now have a new understanding of the sensitivity of the basin in that location. So while a basin in that location is desirable for a number of reasons, it may not be able to accommodate the entirety of the runoff from the upper segment of Warren Drive. That may not be the way to go. You may want to seek other locations where recharge could occur.
Even if you have swales going down the linear section?
That's the work that has to be done.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that narrow neck of the lot has to be the lot access. So whether it's surface swales or some sort of stepped perforated pipe recharge system, or a combination or whatever, to the degree that recharge can occur in that strip of land, that's great. That, of course, is being done right now without detailed knowledge of the soils in that strip. I mean, I don't think we have test pits there. We have a general understanding of the soil characteristics. It's very ledgy under the road, but as you move towards the basin, you get more granular material and more opportunities for recharge. But all that's, it's an evolving process right now. We don't have the numbers to quantify exactly what's going to happen there.
So you're saying that even with this basin, it's really not even enough to handle
Correct.
the upper part of the roadway here.
Correct.
So where in this parcel can anything go?
They need to find new spots.
Well, are there any new spots?
That's what they're gonna be checking.
That's what I'm gonna try to do.
Oh, okay.
So I guess in terms of process, folks are doing a great job, trying to deal with the problem. I mean, John, you're meeting, Tom's meeting with these folks, but in terms of process, don't we need to look at this being a major modification?
Of course it is.
Allowing public hearing?
There's no drainage on 1,400 feet of roadway. This wouldn't even be qualified for buildable lot. There's no drainage.
So, well, the reason why I say that, and the good news is, may not be good news for you folks, but it's really what needs to be done, is that it opens the discussion up to the public, to those abutters, so that they can participate, because I think what's happened here is that the abutter has been removed from the situation until recently, and I think to just make sure that, there's not a cease and desist here in the middle of your project, that we better make sure that, this is worked out.
Well, there already is one from the Conservation Commission.
Well, fair enough, yeah.
Unfortunately, from our conversations from everybody, they're gonna go look to find new ways to infiltrate. But with the land that's available, they're still gonna be looking for waivers, I believe, Mike?
Yeah,
And easements to allow the discharge off the site.
Got a couple of ideas that,
Great.
we're looking for something substantial. So
Yeah.
we don't really have a lot of substantial areas. So we're looking into, okay, let's find the smaller areas, let's try to see if we can put as much as we can in and see what the net result is. And, obviously it has to be practical. So we're going to do that, and, Tom made some great suggestions for us, and, one of the things that I did think about in the few hours that I had before this meeting was we were talking about recharge as we get down along the access way to this lot. And one of the things that we just want to think about is that early on in this process, when Pulte purchased the property, I was involved with the grading plans for their lots. And there was discussion about trees along lot lines and stuff that I tried to maximize where I could. And I believe Mark submitted a plan to you with the areas that we thought we could keep trees and where we had to enhance that. We did save a significant amount of trees along this driveway that if we start to go to recharge, we may have to take down and replant, or with whatever we design. But I'm hoping to keep that to a minimum also, go in that direction.
Mark was gonna check into, a lot of developers put standardly in their contracts when they sell homes, the right to go back and create an easement on an existing lot that's owned by the homeowner, and put easements for drainage in there if it's required by a town action. So I know that a lot of people in this field do that, and Mark was going to check and see if that happened to be one of the covenants in their business package. And if that was the case, they could go into abutting lots and put drainage systems in and use backyards. But you haven't found out about that yet, right?
I haven't been back to the
Okay.
office. I will look at that.
Yeah.
I'm not hopeful. I know in our condominiums, if we put that language in for a condominium is done, we reserve the right for easements on the common
Yep,
land.
yep.
And fee simple lots.
Worth looking for, because, yeah.
I think I would suggest that the goal here is to diminish the impacts on Maple Street to the point that the Conservation Commission might feel that an easement for discharge is not necessary, because the legal process to do that could be extremely complex or not attainable. So, if they have to obtain, my concern is that, there's a whole process for selling or conveying interests in conservation land. If it's outright taking land out of Conservation Trust, it requires a vote of the Conservation Commission, a vote of the town meeting, a vote of the legislature. Now, an easement is a partial interest in real property. How far down that chain you have to go to get an easement from the Conservation Commission, I don't know. But if the solution could be so perfect that the Conservation Commission might not assert a requirement for an easement, even though one might be there, that might be a way out of it. If we have to go the other route, that's a town council question as to how you could even grant an easement if you had to.
Could you just visually remind me where, there's the wetland at the base
Get
of
the other
Maple?
plan, Mike?
But your property is, the Com property is actually larger than that, right?
The plan showing the new plan with the discharge. on Maple Street.
It's right here.
I'm not sure if this is showing what you, this is the wetland here that I'm talking about. And
Tom's got a good plan here.
And the town property is,
Why don't you put this one here
This
up?
is the plan you should look at.
It's this detail here.
Okay. So, this one here, Tom, is that where you're?
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yep.
Oh, that's the same plan?
This is an insert of the discharge at Maple Street. This would be the gentleman's driveway. This is Warren Drive right here. There's a driveway to the house that just to the left of the entranceway coming in. And this line right here is his property line, and this is the conservation land here. This is the right-of-way for Maple, this line you see right here. So this is the conservation land in here, and I didn't get to this part. This was a velocity reducer that we were going to place at the end of the discharge pipe at Maple Street to, no matter what we did up here, we're still going to have some flow down here, and it's going to be rather concentrated. So we were proposing to propose a new pipe to take the water from Warren Drive and put it into a new head wall and have a swale, a stone swale with check dams along here, along the side of the sidewalk that they just put in, and also have a level spreader at the end of that to spread the water out so that when it gets to the woods, it's in a wide fashion instead of a concentrated fashion, thereby reducing the scour and pushing of the root mass and leaf litter.
did you suggest earlier that if, under pre-development conditions, you were getting 11 CSF out, and in post-development, if you get this retention basin to work as well as it might, it'll be 12?
Yes, it would
But
be
it'll still
slightly
be,
more.
but it'll still be at a higher velocity?
Yes. Yeah, the drain
I
pipes
understand.
in the street are
Yeah.
piping directly to
Yes.
that point. So obviously, if we bleed more water off, there'll be less water in the pipes, so that will work to the
It's still
same.
flowing downhill. Still-
So Bob, do you have anything to say about this one?
I couldn't see what you were just doing.
Sorry, Bob.
But you know the area that he's talking about, right?
Yeah, very well. We actually met out there at the height of the storm, probably around 4 o'clock this afternoon, to see what was actually coming out on Maple Street. And John has some video of some foggy-looking water. I think it might have lessened up, John, because when I went out there, it was not acceptable, but still wasn't as bad as what I think I saw there, so maybe it flushed, I don't know. But I think maybe I'm missing something, because in simple terms, Warren Street goes up to 1,400 feet to a grade where water then goes the other way. So we don't care about that. We're talking about, I think it's 1,400 or something like that. The water comes down. And to answer Jeff's question, 50% of it, if we can go down that little street there, we'll take 50%, or close to it, off of Maple Street. So the little design for Maple Street, why don't we put that as option B? Let's just go full steam ahead on this here, because this seems to be, other than the well concern, our salvation. We have a lot of infrastructure on the ground. We just can't, you know, that'd be like bringing OJ back to court. I mean, how do we do this? And just one more thing. I know from inspecting this property that it's ledge. And then when you go deeper, it's more ledge. So we blasted, I saw them blast this street till they got to the subgrade. And then the subgrade wasn't enough to put the utilities in. They had a blast for the utilities after that. And then I watched them put in lots where they had a blast for lots. It's ledge, and it's the worst kind of ledge. I don't know where you're going to get any breaks to infiltrate, and the cost in doing that. So I just see this as, you know, you just got to go this route and take half the pressure off in volume.
That's part of the problem.
What's that?
You still have to deal with the rest of the discharge that's in violation of all the regulations. In other words, with this basin here, there's still excess discharge going off the site.
But wasn't it always part of the design to?
No.
It was never, so
No,
all
there
that work?
would have had to been a waiver from the planning board for excess volume discharge post conditions. And there may have had to been an easement to give them the right to dump the water on somebody else's land. This was never addressed. And that's why I think when Mike looked back at the, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but the old calculations for the old basin don't seem like, it seemed like they didn't work then. Is that true?
No, you know, I think what we're talking about here is what is the design point? You know, when they quickly go through that. When Andrews did their design for the project, there's a wetland that's on the town's property. Their design point was the downstream, this is the wetland that we're talking about up here at Maple Street. This is Maple here. So this yellow represents the contribution of the site to this wetland here. And they analyzed the flow out of the wetland at the property boundary for their development. So this would be downstream of their development. So they looked at this wetland as a whole, whereas now we're looking at the wetland right there, you know, so they never really addressed what's happening right there.
And they never filed with conservation. They actually pulled their submission, their notice of intent, so that really was never even addressed as they carried on with their project.
I realize the commission probably didn't focus on that.
No, we didn't review the project. They started and they pulled the notice of intent, so we never reviewed anything to do with this whole project. Nothing, no. So all this was done.
So I guess from Pulte's point of view, there was a plan that was done that showed the connection, and they just assumed that was satisfactory, and that's probably something they probably should have done, I guess, but anyway, so the volume that we're talking about, the reason there was no waiver is that they didn't feel they needed one because they took the volume as a whole. You know, they do have less volume coming off the site totally than they had pre-development, but just not in that spot right there. So, and not in my spot here either.
So from a Board of Health standpoint at the time, aside from the issue that came up with the well, the proximity of the well, that was the focus of the Board of Health versus the Planning Board, you know, looking at roadways and runoff with the roadway. So, and I wasn't with this board at the time to remember. I don't know, Steve, if you remember
I don't really
history
remember.
in terms of whether that was looked at.
Did
I
the Board of Health
don't
review
remember all the
drainage at that
details on
time?
that.
Did the Board of Health still review drainage at that time, 2010?
Yes, that was when.
Until I came to the planning board, so,
It did.
yeah, and I came 4
And-
years ago.
And I
So-
recalled the same thing you did, which is that the basin was there, and then it wasn't. It wasn't really explained.
Well, I know I never heard anything more from the abutter, so I
Yeah.
didn't really know
Yeah,
why.
no, it
but-
was there, and then it wasn't.
Sometimes the parties
Well,
get together and they work things out.
When
without
the cul-de-sac
us knowing.
disappeared, the basin
Well,
disappeared.
you see, on the endorsed plans, they're stamped on the front, I believe it's the front page, that says if the basin is eliminated, new drainage study must be done. And then the plans were endorsed and recorded, and there was no basin, but there was no record of any study done, so that's where the slip-up seemed to happen.
Well, it sounds like you guys have been doing a lot of good work on this.
We'll get to the bottom of it. Get it
We're doing the
resolved.
best we can with the situation. That's what our goal is to move forward. There's a situation, and we're doing whatever we can to try to make the best of it. And that's what, that's what we've been doing, and that's what we'll continue to do. The boards can do what you need to do, but, we only can do what we can do. And we have been doing that, and we will continue to do that.
So you get two things going on in parallel. You get this whole thing we've been discussing, and then are you still looking for lot releases for the other side of your development, which is a little bit difficult for me philosophically, given what's happening, but I understand why you're doing it, because your point is that it's not really related to this local drainage issue on one side of the development, what you're doing on the other, I think is what you tell me, right?
That's a great segue. So, so we are here tonight for lot releases, and just so for the board's edification, we're essentially stopped out at the site. We don't have any lots. We need the lots to be released to sell them to new homeowners for next year. And certainly when we go to the Conservation Commission, as Mr. Weddleton mentioned, they've currently are not signing off on our building permits, even if the lots were released. So we have two issues, and we're here tonight. So what I'd like to do is just go through the lot release request. So there are 14 lots that we requested to be released.
Show them to us on a map?
Yeah, I'd like to see which ones you're talking
Sure.
about.
Yep, I have a plan too. It's a small plan. Oh, well, it's right here. So mine's in color here. I don't know if you can see it better. But orange lots. Can you guys all see this? So this is Maple Street up top here, and then this is the Rentham Norfolk line. So anyways, the orange lots have already been released, and those are all the lots that front on Warren Drive, because those are the lots previously released. The pink is paved roadway, so then you can see previously we had paved Warren Drive, and then you released the orange lots. And then recently, in the fall or summer now, we paved the rest of the portions of Norfolk. And so we've requested the blue lots to be released, so it really shows best in this plan. So it's the other lots that are on Farrington and Hemingway. So there's 14 of those, and then there's still 5 left. In addition to these 14, there's a Farrington cul-de-sac in the middle of the project that still has not been paved, and the infrastructure has not been built, so there are 5 remaining.
So you have lots on Hemingway that are in Norfolk, and on the other side of the loop, they're in Rentham, yes?
Yeah.
No, Rentham is completely sold out.
No, but there's still,
Yeah,
these
these lots right here.
over here, these lots, this is the town line?
Yes,
So this loop, right, these are in Norfolk, and these are in Rentham?
that's right.
Okay.
So these are part of the lot release request, the ones that you've circled.
Would you mind temporarily just circulating that thing so we can take a quick look at it? We'll give it back to you. Promise?
Steve, at our meeting this afternoon, I had suggested, because we have substantial infrastructure that has to be done.
Right.
And we're far from it. I suggested that I wouldn't be in favor of releasing all the lots they're looking for, but I also, as I told Mark, I don't want to be punitive and stop them from moving on somewhat, but I did suggest that they get an estimate of a bond to complete, even though the drainage study isn't done, and give us some security before we release lots that this is going to be done and paid for.
But we don't know the scope of the work yet.
No, and I had asked them to, based on the tweaking that's going to be done, to go high and come up with some type of a bond number so we could at least have something in place for the infrastructure.
So what we've done is, Mike's office has prepared the cost estimate, and it's conservative, and we think it's complete. We probably should be talking about it.
You did listen to me, Mark.
What?
You did listen to me.
Well, we did, absolutely.
Oh, I'm surprised.
We tried. So we prepared, so the lots requested to be released are not impacted by the drainage issues that we're trying to resolve, which are going to take time and will really, really hurt our project. So what we've done is we've prepared a bond estimate, and we've added in a contingency for the board's consideration. And what we'd be willing to do is to bond, these drainage improvements, so that we can continue to work on them, on resolving them, and we can continue to build and sell lots.
Do you have any contracts right now signed, set to go? Do you have any
We do.
purchase and sale agreements with customers now?
We do.
How many?
There's two.
Do you have completion dates on those PNSs?
You
If you sign PNS, you have to have a completion
We
date.
do, but they're...
You get extensions off in there?
We try
Okay.
not to. It depends on, like, when a homeowner signs a contract, sometimes they're like, oh, well, just let me know, and other times they're like...
I'm talking a signed contract where you have an obligation to move forward.
I'd have to look at those individual contracts.
Are they
I
on
would-
Barrington or Hemingway, the ones the two that you've sold?
They're on Hemingway, and actually, yeah, they're on Hemingway. The most important lots to me are the ones 67 through 71, are the ones.
What is that, 5 lots?
Those.
Yeah, they're on Hemingway, 60, 67. Wait, what is that? Oh, no, I got them in order. I'm sorry, 65 to 71. Those are the ones that we have some contracts on.
Yeah,
and,
sure is.
that we're selling.
That's these that he wants,
Yes.
yeah.
And that drainage down in that section is all in place and working?
It is.
Have you seen that, Mike?
Some of the catch basins aren't too great yet.
Ah,
Because
uh-huh.
we're trying to keep dirty water from getting into them. But the last two that are at the low spot of the subdivision are up.
Are you paving the Rentham sign soon, the side soon? Because you get those catch basins raised.
We're going through a punch list. We're working with the Rentham DPW right
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Obviously, weather depending, we're running out of days. So if we have, so that's still up in the air. We anticipated paving. We're trying to pave.
Okay.
But we certainly need the Rentham DPW's approval to do so, and we've had some work to do, and we've been working on it, and now we need to complete it, and also we need the weather to cooperate.
Is this looking a reasonable range, Tom?
So a partial lot release, if it included those lots, would perhaps meet your short-term requirements?
I would find that very cooperative.
I understand.
So the release of 6 lots is pretty much what we're saying.
Now,
Yeah, because we're going to be here before you folks for, at least next meeting, and so, at least next meeting, so, I'm okay taking the baby steps
Yeah.
while we perform.
I would expect before you come back for more lot releases, the drainage should be done and approved.
Well, we have to have a modification. We have to
Yeah.
publicize it and everything else, so.
you probably need to vote, right, that this is a major modification, and then that would create, the public hearing, initiate a public hearing process and such. But one of the things that we haven't discussed, and I think we have to because of the additional lot releases that you're requesting, Bob McGee, he put together a very comprehensive report for us to review in terms of the history, the materials that are being used for, the backfill and such for the infrastructure, the underground infrastructure, the compaction data, there's water quality data, very, very extensive data package that he put together. And I think all of us on the board are aware that there have been some concerns, and in fact, a resource was put in place at your expense, albeit, but a resource was put in place to provide some oversight, because there were too many times that representatives from the DPW were going to the site and seeing things that they weren't entirely comfortable with. So I want to make sure that, we're finding out there's a liability here in terms of the stormwater, and we're going to need to address that through public hearings and such. But I also want to understand whether there's other liabilities potentially to the town because of issues with materials or workmanship or anything like that. The sooner that we have that conversation and that we can put that in perspective, the better. And we were talking about bond estimates and things like that. And, we certainly don't need any surprises here to our DPW here 10 years down the road where we have infrastructure failing there. So that's really something I'd like to hear from Bob McGee in terms of, his perspective on that. If it pleases the chair, I'd like to hear. And you can certainly have an opportunity to comment, but I would just like to get the latest information from Bob. And Bob, your opinion in terms of what the likelihood is of problems down the road.
Well, what I see now, Jeff, is up to the point of paving the binder course, the wear course, is that the infrastructure underneath that is in, the whole issue up there I ever had was with gravel-type materials. And it seems like you just don't want to hear this, but I mean, I've been on sites so many times to the point of, thought I was going to get in a fist fight talking to the contractor, because there is so much ledge up there that what we did was give a little bit of leeway for the gravel burrow material, the 12 inches of base material, that they had to do something with it. So we agreed with the contractor that they could mix this in with a decent gravel. We could use it up to an elevation where then it has to be store-bought, or at least past specifications in soil testing and so forth. So we go through that process, and it was an arm wrestle the whole way. The Pulte was great. It was the subcontractor that I was butting heads with all the time. So I said to him, listen, every time I come up there, I see a Euclid, that's a big truck, full of beautiful gravel. And every time I first get there, I see the first scoop coming out of it. So I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but it was there for show. And then when I showed up, they started using it. And then I go up there and I see, and I have photographs of direct ledge being put on our utilities. So that had to be excavated out. So there was a struggle up to a point. Now we're at the point where the only concern that I have right now is that a lot of that material still remains like under sidewalk and so forth, which isn't a tremendous concern for me as much, because, sidewalk doesn't need the structural integrity that a road does. But, I'm saying this now, so maybe it goes on record, that if we ever have to go back into the trench after our utilities to make repairs somewhere into the future, or even 50 years from now, that we can go through clean gravel to make the repair, and that we don't run into that ledge, and
Bob,
that's always the concern.
not against what you're saying, and to Jeff's point, when I went up there for road inspections with you, I see a significant part of that road not passing our regulations. It was supposed to have a 3-inch minus gravel for the first 16 inches of roadway. Now, we looked at cross-sections from subgrade to finish, and you look at that grading of the road before pavement, there were 10, 11, 9, 12-inch rocks all throughout that 16 inches that was supposed to be 3-inch minus. And I told you at the site, you may remember, I would have stopped it then, and I would have had them dig it up to bring down, because eventually, that's going to frost heave, that's going to settle, and the town's going to be stuck with that road. If you went in there now, Mike, and you took a section of that pavement, You dig it up, you're not going to find any 3-inch minus. You're going to see all material from the site that ranges in size from 2-3 inches to a foot maybe. And all this stuff is compacted, and it was kind of insulting. I'll tell you it was insulting, and this isn't on you, this is road construction. I got this big packet of road reports from Bob. So I get compaction results in those roads reports that show failing. If 95% is a compaction rate, you're turning in reports that show 93, 94%. Where anybody knows if you use the requirements for our subdivision, which is 3-inch minus and then crushed bank, you'll be at 99% all the time. You won't miss. So you're going to find out through all these roadways that this has been, Bob has been fighting this for a long time, they're all going to be substandard. And it's too bad the town has to accept these roadways because, I don't know, I'm not an engineer, but putting in stones that large within 2 feet below the finished pavement is going to cause from some settling and frost heaves, et cetera.
That's correct.
And this has got nothing to do with the trenches, and when I asked why the trenches that were filled with ledge weren't pulled out and rechecked, I mean, there was too much that was going on there, and I think the town just got frustrated. So, it's too bad the association couldn't keep those roads and be responsible, because I'll tell you something, the quality, everything I saw was poor. You got water grate services, and I'm not sure how they're going to connect the water service to the house because it's filled with ledge. All around the valve, all ledge. They filled it with ledge. So how they're going to connect, I don't know. And we talked about that too on one of the sites. And we were told that once you get around the site of the water grate, it was gravel. And I found that curious because why are you going to have ledge all around the water shutoff and then have it gravel the rest? So basically, this has been going on for years now. So this drainage thing is just one more thing that was, caught into it. And I did go out and measure some of your sidewalks. A customer complained that some of the sidewalks weren't 5 feet. And some of your sidewalks aren't 5 feet. As a matter of fact, if you go by the entranceway right after the gate, you'll find the sidewalks are like 4 feet. So, yeah, it's all this stuff that's a continuum from the time you started, which I think Jeff is trying to get at, is just being a constant, chronic problem of avoiding doing what's right. Now, whether it's you or the road contractor or the new one or what, I don't know, but the project stands in a fashion that would not be up to the regulations of the town for road construction. This is one more thing. And I'm not sure the direction of DPW, what they can do, what they want to do, what they want to go back and check, but I witnessed this all firsthand. I don't know if you were around, Mark, or you were on the site then, or I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Okay.
I'm not on the site, so.
Okay, Mike knows our regulations, they're kind of easy to read, how you construct the road, the cross-sections in all your plans, and they just weren't done. They weren't done.
I just had a question just for my own information. Is the problems with, I don't want to use people's names, but the prior contractor or the current contractor, or both?
Both.
Yep. Just curious, because
I think it's unfortunate because you've got people that really want to work with you and help solve this problem, would like to approve some of the lots, at least some of the lots that you're requesting, but I mean, I'm not sure that is really the responsible thing to do until we come to some agreement in terms of what you folks can do about liabilities we may face in the future for the things that Bob has pointed out. And he's documented them quite clearly.
If we go back to that roadway, Bob, can we do some soil analysis, do some testing just to see what the foot and a half underneath the pavement really is made up of?
It'd be a crapshoot, John, at this point.
Yeah.
Find out where you're gonna dig a hole. And
Yeah,
then
I know some of the sections I saw firsthand that I would start with, but yeah. I mean, it's throughout the whole project, I would guess.
At some point, I'm feeling a little bit of shame here because, I'm saying it's okay, go ahead and pave it. But nobody was there with me to fight that battle along the way.
I
And I
understand.
did document it.
I understand.
And the reality of things is, and I've inspected for many years, many subdivisions, and really what's going to happen is, and the beauty of construction is that when you lay out a road and you put that binder on it, you let it sit there for a long time. Compaction's not going to be an issue up there. And I was unaware of any reports that failed compaction,
Yeah.
that we didn't do it again?
Yeah.
Was it at 93 or something like that instead of 95? Okay.
Exactly, yeah.
Believe me, if you did it now, and if it sits there another year, it's going to get it up to 98.
Okay.
I know that. I mean, so the practical side comes out of me, and I am a little bit forgiving because the site that you chose to build on, you wouldn't do it again. You would never go down this road again. I think you got to admit that. You get into something and you continue it on, but I think it's 6-inch minus and sometimes even bigger than that you can accept. There's 18 inches of material. There's 12 inches of, first of all, you know, I'm not going to get into the study of how you build roads and stuff, so I won't let it. The road's going to be fine. My biggest concern would be that if we had to go back into, if I had missed, because I wasn't on site, some shoddy backfilling going over our utilities and we had to go into it to repair drainage or water, you know,
I know.
how can you do it?
I know.
So what I did was I asked, you know, I said, I'm through babysitting this site, we're going to put somebody up there full-time. And as it turned out, I did not assign anybody full-time. I went up there every single day. And you got a great rate because I didn't charge for all the, many different times I went up there, but, you know, I think the neighborhood's going to be fine. The drainage is a concern as we're talking about it now, but moving forward, and before we put in curbing and raise those structures, and we need to take care of, you know, everything within the right-of-way where there's ledge. And it can, you know, one of the other things, and I'll voice this right now, is that you blast it up to a certain point, and we're not there yet, so it can still be corrected. And then we have, say, a water service come out of the ground at the back of the layout, the right-of-way, but a foot or 2 feet from that, there's ledge. Now, if we got to blast that ledge some more, and I think there's some areas that you got to either hoe hammer, jackhammer, or blast, that it's, how are we ever going to tell if that's going to crack the infrastructure that's already in place? So that scares me a little bit,
You're not.
you know, so, you know,
I don't know
That's my
how new
concern.
this is to you, Mark, but this has been going on ever since I was asked to go take a look at those, which was probably over a year ago.
Yeah, Bob asked all of us. I was out there, yep. So, how reasonable would it be, Bob, for you to convey to this board what some of the practical concerns might be in the future because of what you've seen? I feel good, what you've said, you think the road is going to be fine. But some of the other things that you've mentioned, is it realistic to come up with a list of what the practical implications might be, and perhaps even estimate what the burden might be on the town in the future because, you know, of those issues?
the hard part's over, Jeff. It's the, you know, if you've got ledge outside the back of berm, you get your loom border, then you get your sidewalk, and then you get your private properties. I don't know what you do at this point. If you excavate that ledge out of there, what, to get a root ball in for a tree, it's kind of harmless. We don't want it there. When you develop a right-of-way, the way I like to see it is you develop as if the street is all the way beyond the edge of asphalt, right through, and you develop that whole right-of-way. That didn't happen. So, I mean, I don't, what is it that I could say? Other than we continue to, you know, stand on the neck of the contractor and see that these utilities, that's, you know, that would be my biggest concern. Not that
water
there's a little ledge on the
connections,
sidewalk.
issues in the future, you know, at some point, right, the street is going to have to,
Water lines and utility lines.
I mean, I would at least like to have some understanding of what the implications might be for the actions that were taken. because we're going to rapidly approach the remainder of the lot releases, and I know things can be done in terms of bond levels and such, but I certainly don't feel good about, we talk about unfunded liabilities and unfunded mandates, and I don't believe in those things, so.
See, Jeff, when you put in utility lines, PVC piping for utilities, cable, telephone, water lines, you've got a foot of sand below, the pipe goes in, and a foot of sand above it. That's over time, so as you get the traffic on the roadway and it presses down and compacts, the sand doesn't interfere with the operation of the PVC pipe. When you fill that in with ledge, big rocks, over time, as you drive through, those will perforate the PVC pipe. That'll cause a disruption in whatever surfaces in that pipe, which is what Bob's talking about. Now you're going to go back and you're going to start excavating these trenches, and you're going to be dealing with ledge taking out the trenches.
So I hear the concerns that, Bob is mentioning and you guys are mentioning tonight. I was not aware of any concerns out at the site that we were supposed to be working on or that we were supposed to be fixing that would hold up lot releases. I mean, if there are concerns that we're supposed to be doing and digging up and proving, then at any point in time, your DPW director, you guys can tell us to do that, and we can work through that. But the roads were paved, and I can't speak to the issues and any of those issues, but they were paved, and if there are things that need to be corrected, then they get corrected. But I was not under the impression that we were not doing something at this current moment, that there's this punch list that would hold up lot releases on those roads. Now, if there's a punch list that's generated, I mean, usually it's done at the time when you finish the road, there's a punch list, and you work through it. If there's things that you think we should be doing in the meantime, then I would ask that we...
Fortunately, it's more than a punch list. It's
not a punch list.
But
it's not a punch list. It's a construction of the roadways.
Just to put some mind at ease, the road is so solid, it's never going to go anywhere. I mean, it's just over time. And
Feeling better and better.
I mean, it's just, you don't want it built that way because roads have soils that, pass in a little bit of water, not invite water and so forth. But when you have ledge, on top of ledge, you have a lot of air. And you can't get that compaction, that a true compaction. And you can't get a compaction test over rock. The guy just walk away because it's just an impossible, you just don't do it. But you've got that wear course there, and you've got time. The road's going to settle. I mean, it's not going to settle. It's at compaction right now. But if there is any settlement, there's time to still correct, any nesting or air holes and stuff. It'll fill in and everything will be okay. It's just built too hard. And again, I'll say it for the fifth time, if I have any concerns, it's the utilities. Getting back in there maybe 15 to 20 years from now, you want to know that you can go in there with a backhoe and dig it out. So, and I think that we'll be able to do it too. But it was a struggle all along the way. And nobody else was there. It was just me. And I was just like arm wrestling and arm wrestling with the contractor. But still, I put it in my report, and that's the best I can do.
Well, I think we have to move on from this, and I don't know about any lot releases tonight. Does anyone feel as though there should be any lot releases tonight? I don't know here. John, no?
I have mixed feelings about it. I think
I do too, but-
restricted number of lots I would feel would be acceptable. I think if there's specific, I know that they're working on the drainage, and that's why I would restrict the lots to an area that's upstream of the road that we're looking to capture the runoff from. I feel it's a safer area because when that's back shed onto the other part of the site that he's looking to release. It's the most important to his sales agreements. I think if there are specific issues we want him to correct, we need to get those to him so that they can respond to them. I think it's holding up lot releases based on past isn't helpful for anybody. We got to keep things moving forward And we are trying to move forward on the drainage thing, and again, that would be my reasoning for some restriction on it, but I think to say none, because of these past problems, that we have no solutions, and we're not asking for anything, but we're all concerned, I just think it's unproductive. And it's 11 o'clock, and I'm really frustrated and
Yeah.
exhausted by this conversation, to
And
tell
how
you
about
the
you,
truth.
Jeff?
I'd at least like to see it documented in terms of what, there's a reason why those requirements exist in terms of the roads and infrastructure. And I'd like to, and I'm not talking about, reinventing the wheel. I mean, you've documented things very well here over the past couple of years, Bob, but at least, something in layman's terms, in terms of what issues exist underground and what the potential implications are in the future. And whether it be this board or most likely this board, whether this board feels that it's appropriate to take that into consideration in terms of the bond levels and whether or not the bond is fully returned to the developer at the completion of the project. Well, I mean, so be it. I mean, I'm just one person, but
Can we get an as-built of the drainage on the other side to make sure that's right?
As-built of the drains in Warren Drive?
On the lots that we're about to approve, can we get an as-built on that drainage?
I don't think I could do that at this point because the drains are still not paved.
The what?
Drains are unpaved. The manholes are covered over and most of the catch basins.
What do you mean, they're paved over?
Mark, can you give him your microphone, please?
So the catch basins are paved over too?
Yeah, the only two catch basins that aren't paved, that are to grade, are the last two in Hemingway.
Yeah.
Would be in that area right there, which is the low point of all these roads right here.
I'll tell you my reason for the question, because on all this other site, we're doing the drainage now. On 4 or 5 lots coming up from Maple Street on the right-hand side, on the approved plans, there was another basin in there. And this basin was perhaps 200 and something feet by 50.
Relatively narrow, yeah.
Or 20 feet. Just not done. Just not built. Houses are in there, the basin's on the recorded plans, just wasn't built. So I asked if this was part of the calculations, and they said, we didn't think we needed it.
It's in the lots that haven't been released?
No, it's in the one we're working on, the Maple, the Warren Street side to Maple. That's another part of this thing that we're not even talking about, but
Yeah, but is it in lots that are already sold?
Yes.
We're talking about the back of these lots here, John?
Yes,
That was
exactly.
small-
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think what John's referring to is that in the drainage calculations that were submitted as part of the definitive plan, the last definitive plan that you approved, the drainage calculations had not only the pond on Lot 4 shown on it, but there was a small pond here.
Right.
But the latest plan eliminated it. The plan that was approved by the board didn't show a pond to be there, even though he had it in his calculations. And, we looked at possibly why he took it out, and the only thing we could conclude was that he felt at one time he needed to have something to mitigate for the water coming off of this area here, possibly because of the amount of impervious he was putting in for the lots, and either backed off on the house sizes or something like that.
And that was taken out when the other basin was taken out, correct?
Sometime in that process, John,
Yeah,
it
so
was...
he took out 2 basins.
Yeah.
And,
But I can tell you in my report that I submitted, that I did analyze this purple area here, to see that with Pulte's houses and everything, that it was going to be less.
I understand that fully, and I appreciate your point. My only point was, how are we supposed to trust that the drainage now, as we're about to release lots on the other side, that you didn't leave some things out of that?
Well, there's a difference here, John, in that the plans didn't call for that pond to be put in the plan set, The pond that we're talking about was at one time proposed, but in the latest set of plans was not in there. So Pulte wouldn't have even, without going back to these plans, and we're finding out, we wouldn't even known that that was there at one time.
But you
know?
still want it to be correct. You don't want to
Yeah.
have this type of
Right,
issue
and
come
so
up
I've
in the
confirmed
middle
that
of...
we're
right.
okay, but I don't know the history of why they took it out or whatever, but certainly, I can't speak for the contractor because I don't know them and I haven't seen their work on this, but if it was shown on the plan to be constructed, they would have done it, or they would have done it the way the plan said to be done. But there's no proposal for it. It's not in the plans, the latest plans.
Can we
that were
just do some type of a check to make sure the drainage that's in this other site before released lots is
Yeah.
built as planned? And so
I
we
can-
don't
I
get
can
into this
talk
mess
to-
with houses there and to find out later the drainage is not right?
Do what I can. I can talk to the construction wing and see, can we get the manholes raised up so I can get at them, so I can
And the
do
basins,
an
where
as-built?
they are and the right size, et cetera. Just make sure everything that's on the plans is
So,
built
John,
on the
I have
site.
done the as-built for the Rentham part, the basin that's at the lower end of Hemingway here.
Yep.
We have done that, but as you are aware of, we have all the as-built to this pond right here. This drainage comes down and drains into that. So right now, I cannot get that information in here,
Yep.
but I might be able to try to get some of that. If that can be done, we'll do that.
Okay.
Put your mind at ease a little bit.
Just be nice to know if we start letting you build houses on the other lots, that the drainage that pertains to those lots is as it was designed. That's all.
All right. With a straw poll, I know that there are 3 votes against releasing any more lots tonight, me included. I don't know whether you were a for or against.
No, I mean, I think some things need to be done before the next meeting.
Oh.
What John is suggesting, and also I think what I've suggested, whether the board decides to do anything with the information that Bob prepares, but at least in summary form, some information as far as what issues the town may face in the future, what challenges because of the issues that have taken place on that site.
All right. But we also have to have some sort of a plan, because we are going to have to start this as a hearing. We are going to have some sort of a plan on how you're going to deal with all the water down at Maple Street. So that's, I know it gets down to 12, but that 12 has to be dealt with.
We need Tom to review the drainage plans and have a public hearing.
Yeah. All right. So, when do you want to come back? Do you want to come back on the same day, on the 6th? January 6th? Okay, I'll make a motion to continue this hearing, January 6th at, I think
Not
it's...
a hearing.
Oh, no, sorry.
Not a hearing.
Well, then I don't even have to make the motion, sorry. So we just have to continue this until, what time do we have available?
Do you want to continue, or do you want to?
There's nothing to continue.
There's
It's not
nothing,
a-
I just used
it's
the
not a
word
hearing.
No, but what I
continue.
mean is, if you vote tonight that it's a major modification, then he's
Yeah,
not
but they have to come back, because we have to
Their
start
plans aren't
that
even
it's,
ready.
Yes, but if you vote tonight, he can start his legal ad process and
well,
stuff.
we could do that
Get
if you want.
submissions in.
But do we actually have to have a vote
Yeah.
for a major modification? I thought it was a vote for minor modification, because that's what makes a difference.
I think we have to vote for either.
Oh, yeah?
Because we're going to start, a significant process is going to be initiated.
So could I have a motion for the major modification?
I'll make a motion for major modification of the Fox Run subdivision plan
For drainage?
for drainage associated with Warren Avenue.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. There's so much stuff on our list here. Signage, special permit decision.
I think Bob wants to talk about, snow.
Fern Ridge?
Fern Ridge and Norfolk Commons.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. It actually ties into the last overlong hearing.
Do you happen to have another copy of what I, well,
It's 11 o'clock. I'm not going to make it to midnight. I'll tell
All
you
right.
that right now.
Yeah. Okay, do you want to discuss the payment?
well, yes, what's happened, and I think I try to explain that as best I could on there, is that we're, with regards to Fern Ridge, we're just chasing money again. 2 years ago, when the street had some occupancy in it, we offered the service to all contractors and all business people with developing subdivisions that will sand and plow, the street. And we send a notice out to the contractors, developers, and they agree to it or they don't. And in the case of Fern Ridge, they've agreed to it, and 2 years ago we did it, and they didn't pay their bill, and we gave them a notice. They didn't pay their bill, we gave them a final notice. They didn't pay their bill until midsummer into another budget, and snow and ice is precious money. In August, they ended up paying it, but it coincidentally was at the same time they were asking for lot releases. So fast forward to this year, we plowed all last year for them, and to my knowledge, I think the figures of 5,000 plus is probably the whole amount that they owed us from the first storm to the end. They haven't paid it. So I talked to Ray, and Ray pulled a regulation from the planning board, and I cited it there under maintenance, is I believe, please do read it in case I misinterpreted it, that we have the right to make payment to the town through the bonds that we held, that we hold there. And at the same time, we probably want to, after we pull that money, pay the town back for the services, we may want to go to the developer and ask them to increase that bond again back to where it should be for the cost to complete.
Which I believe we have the right to do.
I believe so. I read it, and
Yep.
I'd ask that you read it.
Yeah, okay.
Because it does say something in there that we can
And I
ask
don't
for
think
bonds for
we-
maintenance.
And I don't think we need the developer's approval to increase the bond amount. No, we just increase it.
Well, I'd say at least increase it for the money that we're going to take out of it. And I think once he gets a notice that we're going to do it, we're probably going to find that he's going to get payment. We won't have to go through this, but move it to the next developer, and that's Stop and Shop Properties, and I'm not sure who is at the head of that. They're represented by lawyers. The deal there is that Stop and Shop, through a management company, sold off some lots. And the management company was released, and there was another management company there, and when we send the bill to them, they say that they don't own the money, that the private lot owners, the new owners of the lot, owe the money for the plowing and sanding services, which I find to be untrue because they still have an obligation to the right-of-way. And we also, Jeff, you know this, we have some outstanding business with them to resolve the proposed design
Some other.
with the crosswalks, so forth. So I talked to them on the phone, they were very kind and so forth. I don't think it's a question of money with them, but they're just so big you don't know who to talk to. The only way I think we can communicate with them is to recommend that we confiscate, or tell them that we're going to confiscate the same amount of money, and that's, I guess, how lawyers will respond to us back. So my recommendation is that, as I've written, that we confiscate bonds to pay the town back for snow and ice services.
How much is owed from each person?
Like $2,400 on the Stop and Shop Liberty Lane area,
And what about Fern Ridge?
over $5,400 or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm-
50.
And we've already got a sanding event gone in there. We have residents there, so we don't turn our back on the residents, we go forward, but
But what about going forward from now?
like I said, we have residents there, and we have customers down there, we have a service to the public. So I'd rather see that everybody's safe and fight them in the courts before I just let the snow pile up and those poor people that,
As part of our regulations, if the, when the roads are owned privately, you have an obligation to keep them plowed and sanded. If you don't, the town has the right to come in to do what they have to keep them safe and send on the cost to you. So
I think, Steve, were you asking that if you take the money out of the bond, then the second half is that we increase the bond?
Yes.
To get
And
that
then we'll have
money
to
put
go back and
back
take
in?
money out of the bond again.
Well, really, the bond was calculated as a cost to complete.
Right.
And we don't want to sell ourselves short on that either.
Right, so you have
that's
to-
why I say,
You have to increase it.
back to what we
Yeah,
confiscated.
Top it
Right.
out, back to that level, right. yeah.
Well, the regulations say that we can increase it if there is a cost
You
increase
can
for
actually,
petroleum.
as an incentive for someone to pay their bill, you can actually send them a 7-day letter asking for payment, or we will pull the money from the bond and reassess the whole bond. And if that bond is 3 years old, say, just with the cost of a lot of the materials, you're gonna find that whole bond increasing, maybe 10,
Like, could it happen
15%.
again? Sure, it could happen again. Does the developer want it to happen again?
Been going up.
We'll find out.
Yeah,
Depending on the developer.
Yeah, we'll find out after the first time how they
Right.
respond.
Well, a 7-day letter to Stop and Shop would probably flush out the right person to talk to.
right, exactly.
And I've already talked to the developer in Fern Ridge, and he kindly, in an email, said that he'll go back and take a look at the invoices, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
But he's going to go back and look at invoices from 9 months
That's
ago.
all. Another case of releasing lots in advance as a favor. I would suggest you just give them a 7-day letter saying to pay the funds, or we're going to pull the money from the bond and reassess the bond.
I would ask that Ray author that letter, if that's okay.
Right, because that letter would have to come from us.
Right, exactly.
Oh, okay. But we won't be able to deal with that until the 6th.
And this is last winter's,
Exactly.
in anticipation of this winter. Can you add that to the letter?
Oh, yeah.
There'll be new billing going out shortly.
You could vote to authorize Ray to prepare such a letter, because I think the scope is quite narrow, it's understandable.
Let's do that.
Yeah, why don't we do that? I'll make a motion to allow Ray to send a demand letter to Stop and Shop and, who's the other one then?
Fern Ridge.
Well,
Fern Ridge, and Norfolk Commons for the demand for payment for past services from the Highway Department, and with a stipulation that it will be withdrawn from their bond.
Second?
Just a minor amendment, and then that we would reevaluate the bond
Yeah.
after it's drawn down.
Second is amended.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Having a few challenges, huh?
A miserable night.
All right, what else do we have here?
Starting with getting stuck in a rainstorm, looking at
Well,
drainage.
Black ice, probably, that his guys were out sanding, I think.
Okay, so we did that one.
What's this, review the car wash?
We're not gonna do that.
Just my
this-
driveway.
We're gonna postpone that until next week.
Okay, good. How about the special permit for the sign? When do we have to have that done by?
I'm sure they'd like to get their, if we can do it now, it'd be good if we're not meeting for a month.
Well, can we do it quick? Do we think this is going to be a fast one? The sign for the medical building?
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Let's
Okay.
do it.
I'm not gonna
These guys are
sign,
very cooperative, let's help them.
I'm not gonna stay for that, because you don't need my vote.
How about reviewing the 11:13 minutes? Did someone do that?
John did.
We did.
Can
You
I
want
get
a,
these?
Want to make a motion
Okay.
accept them?
It's your reading for the weekend.
One side.
Yeah, I'll get right on it.
Expect you to
See you
talk.
guys at
Okay,
9,
good night.
Yeah.
9 on Sunday.
No, 8:30.
Move to approve,
8:30.
8:30.
move to approve the planning board
Holbrook Street.
minutes for November 13th, 2014.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. If you got vouchers, you might as well start circulating
I
them.
just have a couple.
Is there any correspondence?
Not really, no.
All right. When do we have to have the as-built signed for Cottage Car Wash?
No, we're all set. We've still gotta review that, so we're not ready on that.
All right, all right.
Moving right along.
All right, looks like we're pretty much caught up.
So, Pine Street sign. What's the issue here? Where is, what do we got to sign
We
something
have it.
on?
I think it
Yeah,
needs
it's
to be
right in your
signed.
packet, Steve.
Yeah, yeah, you
What?
should have a copy.
Oh, it's in the packet.
It's a
Oh.
decision.
Ah.
Do and sign, I guess.
We decided to have them put it near the entrance, and I think they were very agreeable to that.
Yes.
Everyone was on the same page.
Okay, so this
They
is,
put a sign in the location of where the sign's going to be. Did you see it?
Yeah,
It's a temporary?
Yeah, a small temporary sign,
yeah,
yeah. With the address.
yeah.
Did you see the new?
Well,
These are the updated with the address.
okay.
So does the updated drawings incorporate conditions of approval 1 through 4? Are they still necessary?
They do.
Do we have that here? Do we actually have,
Be a pass.
I mean, I agree with the written word. I mean, it seems to be accurate.
That's in the, did you write this?
Gino did.
Gina, okay, anyway, on the background, first paragraph there,
Yep.
third line, to allow a wall sign and a double, is that supposed to be double-sided?
Double-sided, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. Michelle, when you see the sign, you can see your comment, how valid it was. You look at that
About the
last
fonts?
thing there, everybody be squinting, who is that
Yeah.
last guy?
Yeah.
Who is that? He's an eye doctor. Yeah, exactly. Right, yeah. That's a pretty good looking sign, actually. Yeah, it is.
It is. Yeah. Oh, that's just the management.
Yes, it is, yeah, I know.
That looks great.
Yeah, looks good. I don't see anything off.
Well, this isn't the plan, this isn't the design that is on the submitted plan, the original submitted plans. This is supplemental, right?
Yeah.
So it should say that that what we're approving is this one, and not the one that's in the original
Is there anything
application.
in the original? Was there, we didn't approve anything before.
I don't think we ever saw anything until they came to us for the sign.
I thought that
the
wasn't
special permit.
there something in the application that had the original design?
Can we
I
just
don't
make a
remember
reference
that.
a date or?
Yeah, just
Yeah,
reference the
that.
date on this one.
It's at item number 1 where it says the sign shall be constructed in accordance with the design presented to the planning board on the submitted plans.
At
and-
its
And
hearing.
at its hearing, so maybe note the date of the hearing or note this plan.
It was reviewed November what?
13th.
13th.
The only reference to prior activities is number 3 in the conditions of approval, which says they want to move the sign on the site, which
Yeah, yeah.
would be the only conflict, so.
Good.
Oh, you're right, yeah. Location maybe, but not the detail on the actual sign.
So that would,
Location, yeah.
but they'll pick it up out of the
Yeah,
language
yeah,
here.
yeah.
I don't see anything else. Does anyone else have any other comments?
Looks good. Looks good.
Do we have a motion on this?
Motion to approve the special permit application, decision number 2014-05, for the Pine Street Medical Center LLC.
Second.
Do we vote individually on this?
I believe you do.
Okay. Stephen McLean, approve.
Walter Byron approved. John Weddleton approved.
Michelle Mayhew approve?
Jeff Palumbo approve.
What else do we have?
We'll just have a signature page for that on the first two corrections and get that filed.
Oh, yeah. We are done.
Keith's got the oven tonight.
So, who's going to bring the plans for Lake Street?
Who's got them?
Well, there was two sets
I have the
floating.
board right there, that's Bob McGee's plan. If you want to take that.
Yeah, but that's just one little section, right?
We wanted the one with all the red.
Set, Steve.
Oh, that's the full
I
set?
think it should be.
Well, Ray has
There might
them
be
on,
7 sheets
he has
close to it.
PDFs. We could have them print.
I can't print them in color, though.
We should have it done out of house.
That might be cumbersome to carry around.
They should be
Yeah.
24 by
I think
36.
so.
You can take it off
This.
the board.
The board
Huh?
can figure
We're gonna
it
use this. Yeah, this is good enough.
Two
Well,
sets.
yeah, but she
Two
has
sets.
Yeah.
Excellent.
7
We should have them
sheets.
printed. That's,
So you're gonna hang one of those, right?
I will.
she
So
owns
wake me in the
36
morning.
in a printing company. Pretty easy.
Don't tell her that.
I use Allegra open.
Allegra, they can print it in full size.
Oh, you mean a printer?
A printer.
Company, not
A
a
company.
machine. Okay, I was gonna say, because I haven't seen this 24 by 36 machine.
A corporate entity with
Okay,
machines.
oh,
Let me see this
do we have a
machine.
motion
Keep it
to
in a
adjourn?
closet somewhere.
So moved.
Allegra will do it.
Second?
No.
We're motioning to adjourn.
Before we...
Oh,
I'm sorry, I misunderstood
No,
you.
you
no.
You had to review it, it's your homework for the
That's
weekend.
homework.
I've already done mine, I've already done mine.
Oh, okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This should be the quickest second of the whole night.